All right, here we go. Today we have an absolute legend in the building. Young MC, welcome to VladTV.
What's up, Vlad? How you doing, man?
Man, like, your music represented a whole era of my life. Like, high school, your songs were all over Yo MTV Raps, all over the radio. The music videos were dope. Everything you did with Tone Loc, which I feel is part of your body of work as well. Like, I felt like you guys ran a certain time.
It's so interesting because no one's really brought it like that to me, but that's what I feel like. I wouldn't trade that period from like late 88 to mid 90 for any other artist, any other period, anything. The amount of people we touched with the music we made, from me making like Know How, I mean, Let 'Em Know My Name Is Young was big on the West Coast, but then Know How really took off with dance clubs and overseas, and then Loc at the same time had hit with Wild Thing, and then Funky Cold Medina and Bust a Move were around the same time, Principal's Office after that, and it's just like, that's a good run. You know what I mean? It's
great run.
It's just a really, and especially where the idea that people had about West Coast hip hop, like you wouldn't have lyricist and West Coast hip hop in the same sentence during that time, just based on reputation. But I wasn't gonna change my style or dumb myself down just so that people could fit me into a box. So that was one thing I think benefited from me, is that a lot of places where they wouldn't necessarily give some West Coast artists even a second listen, my lyricism that I did get from the East Coast, I made sure that I brought that through in everything I did. Even Bust a Move, people tell me to this day how hard it is to do on karaoke. If you're not breathing right, you ain't getting it. You know what I mean? So.
Well, it's your first time here. I want to start at the very beginning. So you were actually born in London.
Yes, sir. A town called Neasden. I want to say that's North London.
And your parents were Jamaican immigrants.
Yes.
So you still have a patois accent, or
not really? And when I try and do it, the Jamaicans make fun of me, so I leave that alone. I can understand it. Evidently, my ability to understand it is a talent in and of itself. So, but I will say that my father's record collection with Yellow Man and Gregory Isaacs and obviously Bob Marley, and that, like a lot of those singing and a lot of those cadences, kind of lent themselves to what I was doing in my rapping.
Okay, you were born in London, but then you guys left the UK around 1970 when you were 3?
Yeah, I was 3 years old. We started off in the Bronx for like a year, and then we got our house in Hollis, and that's really the first place that I can really remember. And I went to high school in Queens, and then, elementary school in Queens, junior high in Queens, and then went to Hunter College High School in Manhattan, taking a train, 2 trains and a bus, to get to school.
I mean, when you talk about Hollis, Queens, you talk about Run DMC.
Jam Master Jay got his hair cut at the barbershop by my corner. Davey DMX, my first demo that I ever did was in his house. He was doing a group called Lethal Weapon, I want to say on Tough City at the time. So it goes that far back. And I made the mistake of changing the BPM. Like, I think my verses were 112 BPM and my hook was 117. And then I didn't realize it would fall off a cliff when I went back to the verses at 112. So my real first big lesson about music was from Davey D.
Well, yeah, I remember my first hip hop album that I bought. Not singles, because I had, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, The Message, and Rapper's Delight and stuff like that. But the first album I bought was Run DMC's first album, the self-titled album. With the black and white cover.
Sure.
And that was the first time I really got to see a body of work from a hip-hop group. And yeah, man, it changed my life.
The funny thing is I think there were kind of like albums before then. I wanted, but it was more that guys had a number of singles that you could put together and say, call it an album. But in terms of having a pressed album out, like I don't remember a Jimmy Spicer album, a Super Rhymes album, guys that had multiple singles, but you just don't remember seeing an album until that Run DMC album. And me growing up in New York, any of that stuff that was going to come along, we were going to see. But that's really the first tangible album that I can remember, Profile, and put out just like anybody in any other genre would put out an album.
Well, yeah, and that album had very big rock influences to it. The heavy guitars, was Rick Rubin involved in that album?
You know what? I don't know. I would think he would be.
Yeah.
But
if he wasn't, he was close to it.
He was in the periphery of it. I wouldn't know if Rick and Russell knew each other at that point, or if those guys, what Run was doing and the like. I will say that the rock influence on that album probably comes from the fact that you have Big Beat, Billy Squier, Aerosmith, Walk This Way.
But that came later though.
No. I'm saying in terms of, I'm coming from what we rap to at house parties. If someone had two of something, if you let that beat go, there's a 30-40% chance that a rock riff is going to open up after that opening beat that you're rhyming over. So that was part of it as well. Not I guess Walk This Way being a collaboration was somewhat groundbreaking, but to guys that were rapping over two Aerosmiths where it was like fizzy over the first, couple of beats, that was pretty normal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you start rapping at around 10 years old?
Yes, 10 or 11, yeah. I would say 77 to 78. Jeff Taylor, Grandmaster Key, 210th Street and 109th Avenue in his basement. That was the first place I ever picked up a microphone.
Now, your real name is Marvin Young.
Marvin Young, yes.
So were you always Young MC?
Yeah. I never had a different name because it would just be the last name and MC and that would be it. And then I was always the youngest one in the crew. So I felt that it fit. I would do house parties and block parties and guys would remark that I was the youngest one there. Girls would say that you're not dancing with us, you're dancing with the mic. I'd be 13, 14 years old, rapping around, 18, 19-year-olds and holding my own, But the interesting thing, I tell you this story, I couldn't remember all my rhymes, so I'd walk around with my rhymes in a bag and pull them out and read them. So I remember I did a house party once in Hollis, not a house party, a block party once in Hollis, and a shootout broke out. And I'm running from behind the DJ set, dropped my bag, came back to the neighborhood, somebody had found my bag, gone through it, and found it. Guy gave it back to me, said, you're a good rapper, you should learn to memorize your stuff. Not saying that that's the only thing that motivated me to memorize my stuff, but from then forward, I made sure that I didn't go to house parties with my bag of rhymes.
Well, you were the first rapper with the name Young.
Yeah, and spelled correctly, yes.
Right, because since then you have Young Jeezy, Young Thug, Young Dolph, rest in peace, NBA Young Boy, Young Lean, Young M.A., Black Youngster, Young Buck, Young Dro, Young Scooter, Young Bloods, Young Chop, Young Chris, just a lot of different Young.
A lot of Youngs, a lot of Littles, because there was no Littles before me either, right? There was no, so I guess I'm happy to be the first. At least I can say, this is when I got signed, this is when I came out, and I had to obviously copyright my name, trademark it. So I made sure that happened. So it's a good look. I'm happy to be the beginning of that lineage.
Well, you start rapping at 10 and you're putting stuff together, but at that point, during your teenage years, it's not like you're really signed to a label yet, so you're just doing it at home for fun?
I'm doing it at home for fun. Some of the early rhymes were literally takes on the Three Little Pigs. I'm literally taking like nursery rhymes and stories and making rhymes out of them and typing them up. And I still have them, but those I never put out. But I got more and more comfortable making it, and then didn't know anything about girls, but I'm making a record called Rock Over Casanova. You know what I mean? At like 11. But that was my thing. I have a Trapper Keeper at home with yellowed pages of stuff that I hand wrote and also stuff that I typed out. And from there, I just made sure I grew and grew and grew, that I could pretty much emulate anything that I heard and any style that I heard, the fast rapping, whatever, that I was able to do that.
Okay, so you're rapping, but it's not like anything's taking off yet.
Right.
So you graduate high school, you go to college.
USC, yes.
To the West Coast.
Yes.
Okay. And that's a fairly high-end school, so I assume your grades were anything were good?
Grades were good.
Yeah.
I had good grades, I had a good SAT, but I couldn't get into Stanford.
Yeah, I want to go to Stanford too. I went to Berkeley instead.
There you go. I was an economics graduate. I wanted to do economics, and I couldn't get into U Chicago. So there were a couple other schools that accepted, and USC was the top of that, you know, of that set. So I went, and the interesting thing was, I DJ'd my own prom in New York. I would go to a record store called Rock and Soul on 34th and 7th. That was my place. So the basement of that store, because they would sell electronics upstairs, so you had to go downstairs to go find the records. There was a guy named Eric that worked there. So after sophomore year at USC, I go back to New York, and he says that he knows some people at a record label, I believe it's called Get Busy Records. Let's cut a demo and see what happens with it. So I cut some demos over some beats. I wasn't making beats at the time, and it wasn't much sampling, so a lot of it was just over drum machines. And nothing really happened with that, but he knew the guys at Delicious Vinyl. So at the same time, I'm taking those same demos and I'm shooting them out to Tommy Boy, Sutra, Profile, every place that I went to. In hindsight, obviously the production wasn't strong enough. The lyrics, though, on that demo went on at least 4 of the records on Stone Cold Rhyming. So at that point, I'm not polished. I'm just thinking, y'all are rejecting my rhymes. So when I went platinum, my manager had to I was ready to send platinum records to everybody who rejected me. That was my thing. I'm gonna get you back. And my manager had to talk me out of doing that, which I'm glad he did. But I knew that I was a good rapper, but in terms of hearing an entire song, I didn't hear it. And I only realize that now because when I'm dealing with rappers that are really good on the mic and they can flow over a beat or whatever, but in terms of creating a song, like making Bust a Move, being part of Wild Thing, Funky Cold Medina, being, know-how, these, that's literally maybe, 6, 7 hours, maybe 10 hours of work total that's changed my entire life. Probably 70, 80% of the income that I've made since I was 20 years old. So the ability to make a whole song, that was a big thing. And I realized I didn't have that when I first got signed.
Well, you're at USC and you meet Michael Ross and Matt Dyke.
Yes.
Who have a new company called Delicious Vinyl.
Yes, sir.
Was there anyone else signed to Delicious Vinyl at that time?
I know this from talking to M-Walk. Shout out DJ M-Walk, original mix master. Lōc had been signed, I want to say in March of '87.
Okay.
I want to say that Mellow Man Ace had already been signed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I just ran into Mellow Man. He did a set at this Grand Park show with Psycho Les from the Beatnuts, who I hadn't literally seen in like 20 years.
I know Les.
Yeah. So I want to say Mellow Man was signed, Lōc was signed, and that's probably into the summer of '87. I got signed in, I want to say either late August or September of '87, right when I'm coming back to school. So how that works is me and Eric are supposed to do something and send the demos out to Get Busy in New York. That doesn't work. Marvin has to fly back to USC to go to school. I get on the phone with Mike Ross and Matt Dyke, and I say some of the lyrics that are on my demo. Mm-hmm. So I say about 4 or 5 verses. They send me a contract in the mail. I have no lawyer.
There was no email back then.
Right. They send me a contract in the mail. I have no lawyer, but I'm a member of Student Senate. So I go to the student senator who represents the law school, and I ask him to look over the contract.
Okay.
And he, there's not much he can do, and I'm going to pretty much sign anything anyhow.
Right.
And that was it. But basically, in terms of getting signed, I literally just said verses over the phone, and they were like, "Oh no, we want to sign you," and they just sent me a contract.
Okay. And that original contract didn't include any publishing.
Oh no, it took my publishing away. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the original contract took my publishing away. Yes.
Okay. Do you even know what publishing was at that point?
I had heard of it. I had heard of it, but the whole concept of a publishing agreement being separate, I didn't know.
Huh.
And when I had signed, I didn't start writing for Tone until after I had signed as an artist. So only when I'm seeing Tone's units move and I'm seeing publishing go to Very White and no publishing go to me, then I'm like, oh, okay, that's what this is about. And then that's why that put me in a position where I was able to leverage that to get my publishing back for Bust a Move and the rest.
Okay, so you're signed to Delicious Vinyl,
mm-hmm.
and by '88, you put out a couple of singles. I Let Him Know, My Name Is Young, and Know How.
All right. So this is how that went. The blue label was Fastest Rhyme, My Name Is Young on one side, and I Let Him Know on the other side. That was the first thing physically to come out. Then we got signed to Island, or Delicious got signed to a distribution deal through Island.
Ah. Okay.
So the remix of I Let Him Know was was there with Know How. So that was the second release. Ironically, the remix of I Let Him Know, because I didn't know about sampling, I used the horn riff from Sledgehammer, Peter Gabriel. So we got a cease and desist. I don't even think 10,000 of those were made. So I don't know what went out with Know How after that. I think they had just done an instrumental or something like that for the B-side, or did something else. But yeah, Know How was the first release of mine on Island.
Right. And these songs didn't really blow up.
Well, they didn't. Well, it's like we had talked about earlier with the first Too Short. They didn't leave the region.
Yeah.
They were big in L.A.
Okay.
They were big. It's okay. They played them. We drove up the hill.
Yeah.
Give you a story. Me and Orlando again. Orlando was doing all the driving because Marvin grew up in New York and Marvin didn't have a driver's license. So doing all the driving drove me up to the Baker Boys. The first big interview that I had done, and I think that the Baker Boys had done. I talked with Nick about it. Was with each other, with Orlando driving and me laying in the back of Orlando's the bed of Orlando's truck. Me and Orlando drive up the hill with the remix for I Let Him Know, hand it to the people at K-Day. We're driving down the hill, get to the first stoplight, and the remix is playing on the radio. It was that granular. You know what I mean? It was like they had that much access, and that, you know, it was such a thing that they wanted. You know what I mean? So that's why I had a sense of success from an experience like that way before Bust a Move was even thought of.
Well, yeah, I was living in the Bay at this point, which is, 5-6 hours from LA, but these songs definitely were not registering.
Right.
At that point. So it really was regional.
It was extremely regional.
Extremely regional, which is fine.
Yeah.
But, the rest of the world really didn't know about Young MC at this point. Okay. And did you make a conscious decision at that point not to swear in any of your songs?
The not swearing part came from me growing up in the era of rapping before rap music even got on the radio. So I started rapping in essentially 77, which is about 3 years before Rapper's Delight. So to be able to hear a rap record on the radio, be able to hear all the frequencies, oh my God, that's what the hi-hats sound like. Because before, you were only hearing rap on like community stations and local stations and almost pirate broadcasts. You weren't hearing rap stuff that you listened to on mainstream radio. So the thought process was, if you want to get big, you don't want to give radio stations any excuse not to play you. So I was capable of cursing in my music, but I said, why do it and have them say we're not going to play it because you're cursing? So I made the conscious decision not to swear. Plus, most rappers at the time didn't swear. So as the years have gone on, what was the date that I was going to sell out and start swearing just so I could, fit in with everybody else? Just like changing my name. It's like, yeah, I know I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm still going to call myself Young MC because that's my name.
Well, right around that time, 88, while you were putting out singles and not swearing, Eazy-E dropped his first album, and he was going the exact opposite direction. Yeah. I remember I didn't hear that much swearing on any records until I heard Eazy-E's first album. And I remember there was like this period of time right around 88, because I'd gotten into a bunch of trouble in my junior high. My parents put me in a private school for a couple of years, and nobody listened to hip hop. So I kind of stopped listening to hip hop as much.
Right.
But then in 88, someone played me Eazy-E's first album, Eazy Does It, and I'm like, this is so good. Like from the production to the lyrics to his voice to the guest features.
Special time, man.
It was special.
Time,
and suddenly I was right back into hip hop for the rest of my life, essentially. So I remember, you weren't swearing, but Eazy-E was blowing up. I mean, did you see Ruthless Records and Eazy and all them blowing up around you during that time?
Yeah, but we knew each other.
Okay.
I opened for them. They appreciated me because they could hear the skill that I had as an MC. And I came from New York, but I wasn't claiming New York. I wasn't on stage. I'm not going to get on stage at the Casa, Skateland, World on Wheels. I'm not going to get on these stages and be screaming out New York when I got LA people giving me money.
Yeah.
If I stayed in New York, I wouldn't have been able to make Know How. I wouldn't have been able to make Wild Thing. I wouldn't have been able to make Bust a Move. You didn't just make those kind of records. So the good thing for me coming out to the West Coast is that everybody was more accepting. The music gave you a lot more alternatives in terms of the things that you could do. And I'm one of the few people, there's a thank you. It says MC Young, which is fine. That's still me, but it says MC Young. But I'm thanked on the first NWA record, and I'm thanked. Okay. I'm in the thank yous of Eazy-E's record. So everybody talks about street cred and going back and OGs and all this other stuff. Like, I'm right there. You know what I mean? I may not be waving a flag and all that, but I was in the room for a lot of it. You know what I mean? So real quick, I respected what he did. I respected what all of NWA did, and they respected what I did. I opened for them on stages, met DOC, like that, same way. And all the places, like I watched Straight Outta Compton, and I could literally, recognize each one of the places they were recreating. Okay, that's World on Wheels. That's this place. That's that place. I had opened for them in Vegas when the cops were waiting for them to do, fuck the police and try and pull them off stage. I was there. You know what I mean? So for me, that regardless of this, me getting the skills and coming up and learning all the stuff that I did from the East Coast, being at the infancy of so many special things on the West Coast means a lot to me, because on the pop side, you have what me and Tone did, and the stretch we had from '88 to 90. But on the street side, those guys revolutionized. They basically invented gangster rap.
100%.
And me and Cube go back. I hadn't seen Cube for God, it felt like 25 years, and I opened for him at a show, and he asked me if I was cool with the drive-by. Like I hope you weren't offended by that kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, that gave me the most street cred of anything that anybody's put on a record. Yeah. Because if you remember the drive-by.
Yeah, it was a skit.
Yeah, it was a skit that they had Bust a Move playing before they, went after somebody.
Turn on the radio, turn on the radio.
Yeah, turn on the radio. So I'm like, oh, wow, they're listening to me? That's cool. That doesn't go any further than that.
Well, yeah, I remember when I interviewed DOC, he pointed out that he didn't swear on his first album. And I never noticed until he said it.
Thank you.
And I was wow, he is so good.
Thank you.
And he's in NWA, so you assume there's a bunch of swearing in it. But when he said it, I'm like, oh, you're right. You didn't swear anywhere.
Vlad, that's the thing. It's like I try not to take it, as a badge of insecurity. But the fact is, me not swearing is like stamped on my forehead. Mm-hmm. I don't make a big deal of it, but everybody else does, because they can understand every word, and I don't swear in it. Whereas DOC didn't swear in the record, and I consider myself a real student of people's lyrics, and I was shocked to hear it, but then I thought back and I'm like, you're right. And I'm like, that's what I want, is I want to be able to not swear in a record and people not know that I'm not swearing.
I mean, any crazy Eazy-E or NWA stories during this time?
There was a couple. For the All in the Same Gang video, or not the All in the Same Gang video, the All in the Same Gang Arsenio Hall performance. Me and Eazy were good. We were always cool. We slap hands, hug, whatever. He wouldn't let me hug him that day because he had a bulletproof vest on for the taping. So I remember that. And then also there was another thing where I don't know what it was. It wasn't a performance, or if it was a performance, it was other artists, but it was kind of like an open mic thing. And there were East Coast people getting up and rhyming, and I hadn't gone yet, and I think maybe one or two West Coast artists had gone, but Eazy looked at me and he said, Young, go get him. And I literally went up and I just shredded the mic. I just everything that I could do, because it felt tribal, it felt territorial. And even though me coming from the East Coast, I felt like my ability to spit and my ability to show that I'm claiming West Coast while doing it was important to me. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. What I say about Eazy-E is that he helped make my acceptance into West Coast hip hop a lot smoother, because he embraced me. He thanked me on the records and the like. We shared stages together, and it was always respect when it came to that. So I know a lot of doors were open for me in terms of a lot of people that I know, and a lot of cred that I have with a lot of people because of stuff that I did with Eazy-E.
Well, you're signed to Delicious Vinyl. You put out a few singles that do well regionally, but aren't making money yet.
Right.
And you actually graduated from USC.
Yes. I gave that, I made that promise to my parents. And my thing was, Unless I think we had in the 2 years, because I was signed for approximately 1.5 to 2 years while I was still in college. So I think the beginning of '89, I want to say it was the beginning of '89, we took a trip to Europe to promote Delicious Vinyl. So I took a week off from school. I think it was January of '89. Went to UK, or London, France, Germany, Spain. Touching down in each place, and Bust a Move wasn't out yet, so I'm doing Know How, My Name is Young, Let Them Know. Other than that, I was going to class every day, and I would Orlando would drive me to gigs on the weekends. And that was it. I think I may have flown out to Dallas one time and whatever, but other than that, I was in town, and I made the promise to my parents that I'd get my degree, and I did that, and they gave me the summer to get music out of my system.
Right. You majored in economics.
Yes.
Was there a career path that you were planning if the music thing didn't work out?
Oh yeah, and I was planning to go to Wall Street. I was planning to probably go to grad school because at that point, a bachelor's in that field, it was either a master's in economics or an MBA, some kind of business degree. So Bust a Move came out finals week of senior year, May of '89. They gave me the summer, and by the end of the summer, I want to say, well, end of the summer I was busy touring, probably gold by then, and then by that next February I was platinum with a Grammy.
Okay, so let's talk about the progression. So, like we said, you had a couple singles that came out, they did well regionally, but they're not blowing up on a national level. But you start writing for other artists, and Tone Loc is one of those other artists.
Yes. Tone Loc really is the only other artist.
The only other artist, okay.
Because I was somewhat of a purist. I'll give it. I'll open a curtain for this one. When they asked me to write for Tone, I'm like, can't he write for himself? I had the whole. But once again, that's the East Coast thing. It's just like the purity in the song. I mean, looking back on it, it's so thick-headed. But in the moment, it's like I want to be out. Why can't my records be out? I'm a great rapper.
Well, even today, I remember, when Drake was beefing with Meek Mill. Meek Mill's big shot at him was, releasing some reference tracks that Quentin Miller had written for Drake. And you find out that Drake is not writing all his own stuff. And suddenly everyone's like, oh, is he can he be considered a GOAT because he doesn't write everything himself and so forth? Like, that still goes on even, I think, today.
It does. And the funny thing is that Tone is a great writer. Tone, just the stuff that they asked him to write a song called Wild Thing, and it was just too raunchy for them. So I just wrote cleaner. And I thought it was a good exercise. In hindsight, it's a good exercise for me to write for a voice that's not mine with rap stuff. Because now I'm getting to the point where it's getting harder and harder, or at least I'm putting more pressure on myself to write lyrics. Me churning out 16 for somebody else or churning out a whole song for somebody else, that seems like a very steep hill to climb right now. But in the moment, it was a good thing to do and a good exercise so I could say, okay, if I'm writing for Tone, this is the cadence that I would use, for his voice. But it's different than the cadence I would use for my voice. So putting the things together for both of those songs, they didn't take all the verses, but what I did laid the foundation in terms of cadence and approach for both of those songs lyrically, and that's something I'm proud of.
Well, Wild Thing was based on the movie She's Gotta Have It by Spike Lee, because there's a cut where you see all this montage of people talking. I think Fab Five Freddy said, hey, baby, come to my house. We can do the Wild Thing. And then in the music video for Wild Thing is the same girl that was in She's Gotta Have It.
Yes.
You do know this.
I know that. I didn't know that the movie reference was the thing. But Tracy Johnson was from Hollis, so I knew Tracy from back then. I wouldn't doubt it, dude. I wouldn't doubt it. But we just looked at it as a song about women, song about, having fun with women. And that was kind of the approach. So, but that's not, I wouldn't doubt that existed, but that wasn't if you would ask me the genesis of Wild Thing, that wasn't what would have come to mind. For me, they gave me the title, they said what they wanted it to be about, and then go. And then like I said, I knew Tracy from Hollis, so to see her pop up in LA and doing the videos, it was a cool thing. And she was in the Bust a Move video too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I'm saying, I remember Fab Five Freddy said it. I think he even mentioned it at one point.
Okay.
That was his line. And then to have the girl and she's got to have, I mean, someone made the connection at some point. Okay, so Wild Thing sampled Van Halen's Jamie's Crying.
Yeah.
Without actually clearing the sample. So they say. And I guess Van Halen's management asked for a flat 5K as payment, but something went wrong and it wasn't properly cleared. And I guess it was settled out of court where Van Halen got $180,000. Okay. You know about this at all?
I mean, I've heard some of it, but, you know, I can't vouch for it. I was nowhere near any of it. So,
yeah.
I mean, in terms of that legal part of it, I just wrote my lyrics and stepped back and watched.
Well, and Wild Thing, I believe, was Weird Al Yankovic's first rap parody song.
You think? There wasn't anything but, I mean, it could be Isle Thing when he did the Gilligan's Island.
Thing, yeah, Gilligan's Island. Not his finest moment, by the way.
Well, the interesting thing about Weird Al Yankovic is that there was a definite standard that he went by, that if he was going to cover your song, he would say he's going to make a new composition, give you half of it, he would take half, and then move forward from there. And I thought it was very fair, and he was very creative with what he did. So I was proud to be part of something like that. The interesting thing is, like, I've looked for covers of Bust a Move or parodies of Bust a Move, and the only one that I've heard of was a guy playing the character of a plastic surgeon, and he literally made a song called Move or Bust.
Move or Bust. I mean, when I first heard Wild Thing, it was like an obvious hit. It wasn't one of these songs that had to grow on you and you had to hear 100 times. No. When I heard it, I'm like, okay, this is a hit.
All right, here's the interesting thing about Wild Thing. It was not broken on a pop station, on a hip-hop station. K-Rock in town was the first station to really put Wild Thing on the rotation.
Which makes total sense because it's sampling Van Halen.
True, but to think about it, a rapper, and also Tone with his unique voice, you're playing The Cure, you're playing the Smiths, and then you play Wild Thing. Like, that's counterintuitive to me. You wouldn't, I don't know what other rap record they were playing, because that's still, I mean, at the end of the day, Wild Thing is still a rap record. It may be unique or whatever, but it's still a rap record. So that's something that really sat with me, is that you had the alternative fans getting into it and knowing about that record before pop fans did, and before a lot of R&B fans did, or a lot of mainstream rap fans did.
I mean, do you know that was a hit when you guys laid it down, or not really?
Nobody know, dude. I'll be honest with you. Before you get put on, before you have your first major record, and even afterwards, because it's such a crapshoot, nobody knows that anything is a hit. Tone and I have the discussion, and we talked about it. Recently we talked about it many times. Wild Thing was complete. We thought it could do something. We hoped that it would sell, 50,000, 100,000 records, so that he could get a car and I could pay off my student loans. That was the discussion before it came out. The record sold 4 million copies.
Yeah.
4 million singles, to the point where they need to make albums. And I'm like, oh, maybe we should stop pressing singles and start pressing albums. The only song that could even mess with it in terms of selling that number of singles in that day was We Are the World.
Well, yeah, that song peaked at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah.
Which is the main chart. It's not the rap chart. It's not the R&B chart. It's the main chart. And of all the songs, you guys were #2.
That record peaked at #2 because it was pre-SoundScan. If that was post-1991 and SoundScan was there, that would have been #1 for a month, couple of months, easy.
Yeah.
Easy. So it is what it is. Bust a Move only topped at #7. Only got to #7 on the pop charts, but it lasted on the charts for 40 weeks.
Okay, so you now have this big hit song that you wrote. You wrote the lyrics.
Yes, sir.
You didn't produce it, right?
No.
Yeah.
Didn't produce it.
You wrote the lyrics. Now, did you get publishing on that song?
No.
No. Did you get paid to write on that song? Did you get a piece of the song?
I had a portion of my writer's share.
Okay.
So, the lyrics that I wrote, the appropriate portion of the writer's share went to me. Mm-hmm. But the publishing, no. And I'm trying to think, for a contract to be binding in the state of California, you had to get $6,000. So I want to say that I may have received that at some point to make sure that the publishing addendums were binding. So even though, money's in the pipeline, whatever, to show that it's not just a straight, sign off and just take, that, that I got a check up front. So that would be what they could, balance the royalties against.
Okay. So then the next song by Tone Loc was Funky Cold Medina.
Yes.
Which you wrote as well.
Yes. I had a smaller piece of Funky Cold Medina. Wild Thing, they basically took 3 verses of the 4. Funky Cold Medina was basically 2 verses of the 4 that they took.
Okay. And this song made it to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it became the second rap single to ever go platinum. What was the first?
I would think Wild Thing would have been the first. If that's second, you're gonna tell me Wild Thing wasn't platinum before Funky Cold Medina was platinum? I don't know. That you might have done a bad search on that one, Vlad.
You might be right.
They might have got you with that one. Somebody might have got into you.
I mean, Raising Hell, see, that was the first album.
No, that's the first album. No, single? Platinum single? I mean, Rapper's Delight, I guess. I mean...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking Rapper's Delight.
Yeah. But how could Funky Cold Medina be platinum before Wild Thing was platinum and Wild Thing outsold Funky Cold Medina? That's weird. I'll take credit for anything, but you saying that Funky Cold Medina was the second platinum, that doesn't make sense to me.
Here's an interesting little tidbit here that I looked up. Rapper's Delight was never certified platinum or gold because Sugar Hill Records didn't register it with the RIAA.
That makes sense.
However, the song sold around 14 million copies.
That makes sense.
So it did go platinum, but it didn't officially go platinum.
So what was the first one to go platinum?
I don't know. I can't.
So, okay, look up the date that Wild Thing went platinum and look up the date that Funky Cold Medina went platinum. Not to turn this into a Vlad search thing, but just so we can get that, because I've never really discussed this before, but it would put stuff into context.
The Breaks?
Oh, Curtis Blow. No, that makes sense. Everybody had that.
I think it's The Breaks.
Okay.
So I think The Breaks may have been the first official one to go platinum, and then...
But I don't see how Wild Thing couldn't have gone platinum before Funky Cold Medina. That makes no... Funky Cold Medina is certified... Maybe certified 1, but actually sold about 2. Wild Thing is certified, I'll lean back, dude. Wild Thing is certified 2, but anybody that you talked to that was around said it did at least 4 in the day. You know what I mean? So I was there. It was ridiculous. It's a crazy thing to experience.
Yeah, you're right. Wild Thing was the first. They're saying it was the first one, and then this is the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you say The Breaks, then Wild Thing, then Funky Cold Medina, I'll buy that.
Yeah. Got it. We got it mixed up a little bit. But
no, which is fine. But the whole thing with Rapper's Delight shows that the approach was, I mean, they weren't even registering the records like they were registering stuff in other genres. They didn't think they'd sell that much.
Oh, yeah. I remember when I interviewed Vanilla Ice, he talked about how Ice Ice Baby sampled Under Pressure. Mm-hmm. And they never cleared the sample because no one ever cleared samples for rap and no one cared. And that was like one of the first songs that really blew up and actually got sued over not clearing the sample. And he ended up actually buying the song. Right. In the middle of the lawsuit, he said, I might as well just buy it. So he bought Under Pressure. Right. And then he bought, Ice Ice Baby later on. So he actually owns the song itself and the song he sampled from. So, yeah.
It's a good look.
Oh, yeah. Vanilla Ice is rich. Yeah, I've interviewed him a few times.
Oh, no. I've done... 300-400 shows with him on this 90s tour? It's ridiculous.
I'm sure. What's interesting about Funky Cold Medina, when you look at it in a 2024 lens, is you got Bill Cosby, that basically became infamous for drugging drinks and so forth. And Funky Cold Medina kind of talks about that in a way. I know in a fun way, but it's kind of that.
Funky Cold Medina was like a hip-hop or a rap take on Love Potion No. 9.
Right.
So it wasn't about roofing somebody or anything. It was literally just a fun approach. They would have little glasses, little bottles of grape juice, and that would be.
I understand all that.
That would be what was sent to the radio stations. And that
I understand. I'm just saying that song today probably wouldn't go over quite as well.
No, you're right.
with Bill Cosby in the background,
trust me. There's a lot of stuff. For me, I mean, in Bust a Move, like the first verse where I say, "Chick walks by, you think you can sex her?" I've been asked to change that at half times of sporting events, and when they did The Masked Singer, they changed. You know what I mean? And that's one of the cleanest records ever made. But in terms of what in terms of what people are sensitive to now, then there's just a lot of stuff that has to be changed. It's kind of like a fact of life.
Okay, so you have these 2 huge hits with Tone Loc, but you're not featured on the songs as a vocalist at all. Was there a moment where you said, man, maybe I'll just be a writer because me being a vocalist is just not going to work based on...
No, I looked at writing for Tone as something that I was doing on the way to becoming a solo artist. Like, I felt that if Tone could blow up, that would help the label be stronger for when I came out. And also, I'm finishing up college. So Tone is blowing up while I'm still going to class. You feel me? So there's not any point where I'm saying, oh man, I wish I could be out there because I want to get my classes done. So Bust a Move, like I said, literally came out finals week of senior year. So I had that summer. So I hit the ground running, with Bust a Move in the summer of '89. And Cameo in the Bay was their summer jam for like 20,000 people was the first big show that I did with Bust a Move.
Okay, so you talked about how back then, not having any hit records, you're putting stuff together. You're not sure if it's gonna be big or not.
Right.
But you now have 2 platinum songs under your belt. So when you make Bust a Move, did you think that this is the one?
No.
No.
When I make Bust a Move, I'm saying, okay, it's slower. It's not a rock beat. I don't have Tone's voice. It's a different cadence. There's a woman singing in the hook. The track is more R&B. Oh my God, I hope they'll hear it. I hope that people will listen. I hope I can sell a fraction of what Tone sold. I'm hoping I can get some of the exposure that Tone got. The one thing I will say is that I was able to watch Tone for over a year navigate having 2 massive, essentially multi-platinum records, crossover records based out of LA, coming out of the same label that I was on. So I was able to use that and say, okay, I can navigate my way if my records start to crack.
Well, in terms of the production, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers played bass guitar on it.
Yeah.
He said he only got paid $200.
Yeah, I didn't even see Flea play. I wasn't there. Like Flea playing, Crystal Blake singing, I was not in the studio for that. I wasn't driving. So literally I was just driven to the studio for my sessions. I would do them and then go back to school. So all of that stuff was done outside of me. How they paid it, what they did. Red Hot Chili Peppers was a local band, so you had Fishbone, Mama Stud.
Yeah.
This is before
Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Years before.
Yeah, threw him in the limelight.
Yeah. So he was like one of the hottest. He was the hottest bass player in any local band in LA.
Oh yeah, and you could really hear like the Red Hot Chili Peppers funkiness in that song. Like what he did on that bass was like, damn, like this is one of the greatest bass players ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I had nothing to do in terms of how the business went. I didn't get the greatest business at the time. You know what I mean? So, it was just one of those. It was just one of those things, that just kind of happened.
Well, Bust a Move comes out, and it hits number 7 on the Billboard.
Yes.
Not quite as good as the Tone Loc records, but still a big, being top 10 on Billboard Hot 100, especially the rap record.
Yeah.
Because back then, rap records were just sparsely every so often kind of.
Exactly. And especially pre-SoundScan. I just got to keep hammering that home. SoundScan, you can have a record label manipulate radio and sales and get a number 1 record on SoundScan on a record that doesn't deserve. You could name 100 records that have been higher than number 7 that aren't even close to Bust a Move in terms of their impact, but because of how SoundScan was and how that could be manipulated by anybody who's really trying to work a record, that kind of was what it was. So I didn't really pay attention to the chart position. I knew Tone was big. There were, not everybody had cable. Nobody had really internet, so you didn't have access to all the numbers. Mm-hmm. So going in back and doing a postmortem in hindsight wasn't really there. Tone had enough to get him on the road and get him working, and I had enough to get me on the road and get me working, and then the Grammy stuff came up, so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing all right.
Well, I think what really made that song was the music video. I remember watching that music video on MTV Raps, and the girl with the black shorts with the stop signs on the shorts, she got me through a lot of a lot of lonely nights.
I remember, if I'm not mistaken, we had a 2-day shoot, and that was a big deal to get a 2-day shoot. We had Lou from Soul Train in there. Tracy Johns. There's a lot of well-known people that showed up for that video, and it was really the first thing that anybody had seen from me. So it was a cool experience. It was something I was proud to be part of. And as a lyricist, I felt that I put down something really impressive, or something that really showed my lyrical skill, that it's not just a regular pop record that anybody can do.
I mean, how did it feel to finally have a hit song yourself that you're rapping on, your name is on it, as opposed to just being a writer on someone else's song?
It felt good for me to have a hit record, but I have to reiterate, when Tone's records were blowing up, I was in class, so I'm trying to get my grades done. You know what I mean? I want to say the first summer after I got signed, I'm trying to think if it was 88. No, because I was doing shows. So that summer of 87, I was a bank teller at Chase in New York. So I'm going in like that, like, okay, maybe this music thing is going to be my summer job. So part of my summer job was writing for Tone. And then I'd go and do a couple shows, some local things, and then go do a couple regional things, and try and make it happen. I remember I flew to Texas and did multiple shows in Houston, and that was the first time I'd ever seen condensation on the windows because it was so hot and the air conditioning so cold inside. So that was during the summer, so that's when I wasn't in class. So that kind of thing, and like I was able to get an apartment. They got me my first, off-campus apartment. That or the first apartment that wasn't part of my campus situation. So those experiences, that was taking up more of my time rather than sitting and looking and saying, oh man, Tone's blowing up, what's gonna happen with me? I hope I can do what Tone did. I had no time to watch anybody's pockets or anything like that. I was literally just kind of wanting to finish school and then really dive headfirst into my music.
I remember watching MTV, and they interviewed you. It was a really quick kind of little soundbite. And I remember you said this, and back then, no internet, you don't know anything about artists,
sure,
as opposed to just hearing them do little interviews on MTV or maybe the radio. And you were like, yeah, before rap, I went to college and I made sure to get my degree, just in case this music thing doesn't work out, I got my degree to fall back on. But I know I'll never fall off because I'm on MTV right now. Yeah. Do you remember the whole thing?
I do vaguely. I mean, the first part for sure, and I could see me throwing in, won't fall off because I'm on MTV right now, because that was a big deal.
Yeah, you were a big deal. Yeah,
it was a big deal in the moment. So, that was always been my approach. I have said before that having my degree gave me alternatives. Also, I knew that when I was sitting across from record executives, I was sitting across from someone who I was as educated as they were, so that helped. And also, when the money started coming in, they could pretty much be sure that I wasn't going to blow it. They could pretty much be sure that I'm going to do smart things with my money, so I'm never going to be in a position where I'm desperate. Oh, please take my publishing so I can pay my rent.
Yeah, I mean, this is important because I have a computer science degree from UC Berkeley. And for the longest time when I became a DJ, I was thinking, man, I wasted my time. I could have went straight into hip hop and I could be ahead, as some of these other guys at the DJ Clues or the K-Slaves that started as teenagers. But as life went on, I realized how much of an advantage that degree was. Because as I transitioned into VladTV, suddenly all that computer science knowledge went into the making of this company. Like VladTV is very much a technology company as well as a content company. And everything I learned in college and learning how to learn.
Right. I will tell you the most important thing that my college degree did for me, and I bet that your college degree did for you, is that it teaches you how to finish.
Yes. How to actually finish. Exactly.
Doesn't have to finish perfectly. Doesn't have to finish it. Just finish.
Yes.
Finish, get through it. You have all your arms and legs. Go on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Oh, it doesn't feel perfect. Doesn't matter. Finish.
Yeah, go on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's true. I never thought about it that way, but you're right. College teaches you how to finish. And when you see a lot of people who they start and they always kind of trail off, a lot of them didn't go to college.
Unless you're a 4.0 student, all right? If you have a class and you know you're not going to get an A, you may not even know that you're going to get a B, but you know you got to finish to get to the next class.
Yes.
That's the experience that people that say, oh man, this doesn't feel perfect, I'm going to do something different. Oh, I'm going to go to community college for 6 months and then get out. And then you want to talk to somebody in your field and you say, oh, they have a 2-year project for me. I'll be able to finish it. Well, what happened in community college? That was a 2-year project. How'd that go?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's how I look at it in terms of the music stuff. So me writing for Tone and then waiting, no problem. I got to, that felt like a B in a class. It's like, okay, tried my best. This is what, couldn't be the artist, all good. I'm watching, and Tone's my friend. I mean, Tone is my closest. Tone is like blood to me. Huh. You know what I mean? So watching his success even means more so to me now. But in the moment, I'm looking at it like I'm a part of this. So it may not be me as an artist, but let's see where this goes. Let me see what I can learn from it. Let me see how I can grow from it. So then me and my success and navigating that success, direct result of me watching Tone do his thing.
When you're actually blowing up with Bust a Move and you're doing Cameo Summer Jam and your music videos all over MTV, the radio's playing it, people are now seeing your face. Is the money coming in at this point?
No.
No.
Money's coming in from shows.
Yeah.
Money's coming in from shows, but the vast majority of what my royalties should have been were supposedly in the pipeline. And I can't really go too far into that. It's NDAs and all that, and but I was not seeing from a record deal what one would think that, But once again, here's the thing, and I defend the situation, this way. If you have a production company that's, let's say 120-day, 180-day wait for the artist to get paid from the production company. Then you have the independent label. Well, there's a wait between the independent label and the production company. Then the independent label gets to a major distributor. There's probably a 120 to 180-day wait between the money going from the distributor to the independent record label to the production company to the artist. So if my deal was initially with the production company, then I could be waiting a year and a half just based on the contract I signed. I may sign a contract that makes me wait 6 months, but if they sign 2 more contracts that makes them wait a year, then I'm waiting 18 months from when that record is sold to when I get my money. Not saying I wouldn't have still gone into litigation, but in hindsight, looking at it, to get that hustle from, Delicious Vinyl, Very White Music, all the way up to, Warner, Polygram, Island, and have that money filtered down. Who knows what business those guys are doing, the major distributors are doing with Delicious at the time. Now, it's personal to me, so it is what it is, but the advantage of having years to look back on it, it gives me a bit of perspective.
Well, right now on Spotify, Bust a Move has 141 million streams.
It's a decent number.
Pretty big number considering how long after
the
song came out, the streaming was actually invented.
It was a little, I say, even though it's only certified platinum, I would say the record sold at least 2 to 3 million albums before the first stream ever existed.
Easy.
Not to mention the downloads, not to mention the other stuff, sure.
I mean, with the fame comes the women and the parties and everything else like that. I mean, were you starting to go crazy during this time? Because a lot of people, look.
My wife gives me grief about it, but only because I say this and I mean it. I had one crazy week.
I don't believe you.
No, seriously.
I've heard you say this on Drink Champs.
Dude.
I do not believe you.
I honestly
don't believe you.
Because
I know you gotta say what you gotta say because you're married.
No.
Don't believe you.
This is the thing that people don't understand. It's like if you're a famous guy, she won't keep the secret. She's not gonna say, "Oh, I just slept with this guy. I slept with that guy." That young MC that did that record.
There's no internet back then. There's no one to tell. You can't post that I just slept with young MC.
No. And I'm not saying that I wasn't messing with girls just so that people wouldn't gossip. But the point was that anything I did was magnified. So my whole thing was, unless I knew that this is something that I want to, invest time and whatever into, I wasn't like jumping around with everybody. It just didn't make sense to. Trust me, I had my fun. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had my fun, but I'm the kind of person where I'll experience something and know that I'm about to get into it again. And if I didn't like the first experience, I won't get into the second one. That's how I am. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't do any. So I'm not gonna be in the mindset where it's like, oh, let me just have fun and let's see how it turns out. I'm always over-calculating. Now, we just met, so you probably don't think that's right. But trust me, that's how I am.
I mean, look, I remember when I first became a DJ and I started to tour as a DJ. Yeah, I went crazy.
Oh yeah,
with the girls.
But dude, I mean, Vlad,
and I didn't have 1/100th of the fame that you did.
But Vlad,
maybe not 1/1000th of the fame that you did. And I remember just how easy it was, and how really how cool it was. Just to have women constantly approach you and waiting for you after the show, and the admiration they have of you. Like, that's something that normal people just don't experience.
True.
Right?
Having said that, I know people that have more money than you can believe that have horrible social skills. But they're very well respected, and they think they have the greatest time because they have a whole bunch of money. But they would give up some of that money to get better social skills, to be better and more comfortable around people. I know really, or have known really beautiful, sexy women, the whole 9 yards, that don't live life well. You know what I mean? They don't survive well. They're not good in terms of supporting themselves or supporting a partner or anything like that. And you watch them go through life and you see that and you realize, okay, that may be good for a night. That may be good for a week, but that won't be good for a lifetime. That won't be good in terms of partnership. Plus the fact that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's sister. My pleasure is not worth putting more burden on top of them with the hurdles that they got to deal with if I know that I'm not going to be around. And that's, I felt fortunate. It didn't feel like a job to me. It felt like a lottery win to me. So my interactions with people, I felt that I want to leave an interaction with someone with them being better off than when they met me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So and once again, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing all, so I'm not going to run into a drunk woman in the club like, ooh, I can get some and then go back to no. I know what that's going to be. If I know what that's going to be, you know what I mean? Penthouse, no problem. Playboy, no problem. Strippers, no problem. Well, if you know that, then are you going to continually saying, oh, I want to be with this centerfold, I'm going to be with this person? No.
Yes, I would say
no.
that. That's exactly what I would say.
I'm coming from college, Vlad.
I would absolutely say that.
Vlad.
And a lot of your contemporaries were doing the same thing. I mean, how many kids did Eazy-E have? Like
Vlad,
12, 13 kids?
Vlad, here's the thing. If you're watching your contemporaries do stuff and it's not working out well for them,
it's working out pretty well for Eazy until
but I'm not even talking about him in particular. I'm just talking about me looking at people that were in the circle, in the clubs. I was going to Roxbury. I lived half a mile from Roxbury in its heyday, and I was going 4 nights a week, sometimes 5 nights a week. Just being up in there, but I wasn't bringing anybody home. I have the fun or whatever. And when I dated somebody, I dated them. And that's what it was. I tried to have, relationships as opposed to, oh, I'm gonna meet somebody in the club and jump in. It's like I knew where that was gonna go. So, that's about as honest of an answer as I can give,
all right.
To that.
If you say so.
All right. Really? Okay.
Okay. I'm giving you a hard time.
No, it's all right.
All right. So Bust a Move gets nominated for a Grammy.
Yes, sir.
Best Rap Performance.
Yes, sir.
Was this the first solo rapper song to win a Grammy?
No, I thought Parents Just Don't Understand had won before. It was the first televised.
Yeah, but it's Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff.
Okay, if you
so
say
that's considered a group.
Okay, so if you consider,
see what I'm saying?
If you consider Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince a group,
they are.
Then Bust a Move would have been the first solo rap performance or rap Grammy, and it was the first televised rap Grammy.
Exactly. And Flavor Flav crashed your acceptance speech?
Yes. He said he got a lot of grief for that, which I don't doubt. Me and Flavor cool to this day, so it's all good. But
what did he say when he crashed it? Like, what happened?
He's like, yo, I just
footage.
He's like, yo, I just got hyped. I had to do it, kind of thing.
Okay. So, I mean, because you've had a lot of interesting rapper stage crashings during awards. I mean, of course, you had ODB. The whole Wu-Tang's for the children.
Yeah.
Puffy's good, but Wu-Tang's for the children. I mean, of course, there's Kanye with the Taylor Swift situation.
To me, I think if I remember correctly, he hugged me. And then I said, I want to thank Flavor Flav for breaking up the monotony of my acceptance speech. And a lot of people gave me credit for saying that line. So I'm not looking at it like, ooh, I wish I can get another Grammy so I can have one that Flavor Flav doesn't crash. It's like, you know what I mean? It's just, like, I'm good. Like, it's the same thing as like writing for Tone. I'm like, oh man, I wish I could write a record that would be as big as We Are the World. I mean, I could perform a record as big as We Are the World. I'm not caught up in that. But I'm happy to be there, happy to be in the room.
And you knew Flavor Flav from before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you talk to him about crashing afterwards?
Yeah. No, I spoke to him. And that's when he told me he caught a lot of grief for it. I was on campus at USC before I got signed. So this would have been sophomore year. And Public Enemy came to perform in my school, and I DJ'd to open for Public Enemy before I got signed on my record deal.
Dope.
Yeah.
Well,
and by the way, Chuck D, I consider Chuck D a mentor. I should be in better.
Oh no, Chuck D is so dope.
Better contact with him, but Chuck D, like, he's the person I would go to if I had something that I couldn't handle.
No, I've been talking to Chuck D nonstop for the last 15 years. Like, we text each other.
Yeah.
Every year, a few times a year, to catch up and so forth. He's interviewed with me, multiple times. Chuck D, I feel like, I hate how he gets overlooked when you talk about like the GOAT rappers, because I feel he's absolutely one of them.
In terms of content, he's never been like, he's never been a lyricist in terms of a lyricist approach, but in terms of his ability to deliver a message and deliver impact.
Yeah, Fight the Power, like, these are timeless songs.
Chuck D is probably the most impactful rapper that's ever picked up a microphone. In terms of,
I would actually agree with that.
In terms of him picking it up, saying something, having it hit somebody, and just really standing for something and getting his point across. Chuck is the guy with that.
Well, getting an MTV award is cool. Getting a Soul Train award is cool.
I never got either of those, by the way.
Right, but getting a Grammy,
yeah,
that is the top of the mountain right there. That is the ultimate award when it comes to being a musician. How did it feel to hold a Grammy and said, wow, I actually got a Grammy for a song that I wrote and performed?
The interesting part about that is you talk about me feeling some kind of loss or some kind of deficiency because Tone put out those records and blew up as the artist. And I honestly think that my Grammy for Bust a Move, that part of the push behind that and part of the impetus behind that is because people knew that I had co-written for Tone, that I was part of two massive records before my own record as an artist, so that they had seen my name before, seen that I was capable of being part of a massive record before. Because Bust a Move was the first thing that they had heard from me, as an artist. And I'm going up against Public Enemy that had multiple records. I think NWA was part of it, De La Soul. All of these people had come out before me. All of these artists, all of these acts that come out before me had more records than me, had their album out before mine, was more established, and had multiple singles on their record. Principal's Office was okay. It was a good record, but Bust a Move was 40 weeks on the Billboard chart. So people just knew me from one record. So you talk about an album that came out later with just one big record on it, and that's the guy that wins the Grammy. And I think a lot of it has to do with people saying, oh, well, he wrote for Tone Loc. So I think that helped my pedigree, and that put me in a good position. And the irony, I think back to this day, meeting artists and that whole Grammy experience, and one of the people that was the most gracious to me, treated me like a peer in the whole bit, was Bruce Hornsby. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
I remember him calling to me, we had a talk, and just the way he regarded me was like so cool, because I'm like, oh man, I'm this rap guy, and people are talking about rap like it's gonna go away like disco, and it's not gonna be like an established genre. And speaking with him, and he's such an accomplished musician, and he was so interested to talk to me like me talking to him, that just that conversation and that interaction made me feel a lot more confident around all the people that I met.
Yeah, and people actually forget this, how you said that a lot of people didn't think that hip-hop was going to be around.
Oh, sure.
I remember in high school, a kid in my Spanish class said, another year or two, hip-hop is going to be gone.
Oh, yeah.
And he really believed it. Now, I didn't believe it, but I remember when I interviewed Melly Mel, and we talked about how The Message was the first serious
rap song.
Yeah. Before then, it was rappers talking about rapping.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And then The Message was like social commentary. It was a deep record. The New York Times started to write about it. And people looked at hip hop as like, okay, this is actually a real art form. It's not just, I like to almost compare it to what, hip hop could have gone the way of go-go in DC.
Sure. Okay.
In DC, go-go is still the biggest thing ever. Outside of DC, no one's ever heard of go-go. right?
Right.
And hip hop could have remained a regional art form just in New York, not outside, not this global phenomenon that it became. And certain records, like The Message, changed that. But you don't know the future. It could have just ended up dying away like a disco or just becoming regional.
Do you remember a record called Problems of the World? Problems of the World Today? That was a regional record that I want to say came out before The Message that was social commentary just like that, but it was local.
Yeah.
So it easily could have been that. So you had not only something like The Message and Rapper's Delight, going national, but then
International, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you had someone like me going and taking all that I had and going to the West Coast and breaking from the West Coast. When I was a kid, you could look at a subway map and you could see every rap artist that you knew, or the majority of rap artists that you knew, either on that subway map, or if you extended Queens to Long Island to include Public Enemy, everything would be on a subway map. When that changed and music was coming from somewhere else, the irony of it is that a lot of that outside music couldn't get into New York, but a lot of that outside music can get into a whole lot of other places because people were hearing different sounds that weren't just New York.
Well, you get a Grammy and you're doing press, and a British reporter said, "I'm surprised you don't have that Grammy around your neck on a chain."
Yes, that was said to me.
Yeah.
That was said to me. It was the next morning, and I'm supposed to get up and go do press as like a wrap up for the Grammys the night before. And that was the comment said to me before we started the interview, because that's how that reporter regarded rap. That's how the reporter regarded MCs and hip hop. And I was just a representation of it, ironically, as the first solo, right? And the first televised. Oh, well, now that we're doing this rap stuff, I guess they're going to have the Grammy around the neck on the chain. We should put a little, clasp on it so they can make that easy for them. Whatever.
If I want a Grammy, I'd have it around my neck on a chain. I remember what's funny is I was traveling maybe about a week ago, and I was at the airport right after the Emmys.
Yes.
And I remember there was a couple people who had just won Emmys, and they were just literally holding it in their hand. It wasn't in a suitcase. It was right there. We were on the lounge together. They had it right there on the table.
That's right.
Next to their pita bread and soda. And I'm like, yo, if you win an award of that caliber, shit, I would flaunt it also.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it has kind of like a racist undertone to it.
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole musician thing, that's why the Bruce Hornsby interaction was such a big deal to me. And I think I met the man once or twice, but that was such a big deal to me because he's such a respected musician. And he looked me in the face and treated me like a respected musician. Whereas you had a lot of people, even when I was on labels, I'd be on labels with rock bands, and they would say, they're going to go do a show. And I'm like, yeah, I got a show in this town. It's like, oh, you're going to take your DAT machine with you? That kind of thing. It's like, okay, dude, it's like, you may get paid what I get paid, but I'm taking home a lot more than you. So whatever, you do what you got to do. So yeah, there were definitely racist undertones to it, but my record crossed so much that I just try not to focus on that. And I like the fact that I was able to break down walls and barriers. And there's a lot of people who their first exposure to rap music was something I either performed or wrote. And that means a lot to me.
Well, the next big record was We're All in the Same Gang.
Yes, sir.
Which was a West Coast version of Self-Destruction.
Yeah. And as I've said before, me and Tone Loc are the only two people to be both in the Self-Destruction video and the All in the Same Gang video.
Right. It was you, King T, Body and Soul, Def Jeff, Michelle A, Tone Loc, like you said, Above the Law, Ice-T, Dre and Ren, JJ Fad, Humpty Hump / Shock G.
Eazy had a verse on it too, right?
MC Hammer and Eazy-E
yes, sir.
ended it. And Dr. Dre produced it.
Yes.
And by the way, the way Eazy edited it, I thought was so authentic. Because he really wasn't preaching peace on it like everyone else was. Everyone was like, gangs are bad. Don't do gangs. Violence is horrible. Eazy like, look, I know a guy who got shot and his mom is crying about it, but oh well, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Right.
It's up to you. Something bad probably going to happen, and that's it. I'm out.
That was the brilliance of my conception, putting that whole thing together.
Yeah.
Not just including all of us from all the different backgrounds, but not trying to orchestrate what we said.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So we had the freedom to do what we wanted in terms of the stuff we said and the way that we portrayed it. But also, you know, knowing that we wanted to get the whole message across. And for me, at my core, I'm a lyricist. So even if I'm talking about something that I'm not as well versed in, because I haven't been in LA long, I haven't grown up with gangs around me, I'm not affiliated, but I want to make sure that the 16 that I give is the best 16 that I can give from my heart on this topic. And only in the last 10 years or so, when I've encountered people, they say how much they appreciate how strong that verse was on that record. Because I could have mailed that record in. Easy.
That was a great verse. I got to listen to it again, and I'm like, wow, he really did his thing on that verse. It was, what, 8 bars or something?
Well, it's 8 bars on the single. Like, they gave me 16 on the extended.
Oh,
So I do 16 on the album version. I do 16, and when I do it in my longer shows, I do that 16 bars.
Got it. And my conception, he was one of the founders of the Crips.
Yes.
So him putting that together meant something.
Right.
Did you ever deal with him directly?
Oh yeah. No, he had asked me to be on the record. I was one of the first to say I would be on the record. The irony of it is that I was one of the first sponsorships I had was from a company called Platinum Everywhere, from a bodybuilder and bodybuilder Mike Christian. And Mike Christian had a hood background, so I was accustomed to being in business with people in LA that had affiliation. So when I encountered my conception and he asked me about it, not only was I down to do it, but I saw where he was coming from and just the stuff that I was picking up in terms of what was happening locally, the stuff that I would see when I would do the local stuff for K-Day before Bust a Move blow up. I wanted to be able to do something that could help. So being asked to do it, I was one of the first on board. Shock G had asked me about, like, yo, should I do this? Should we have digital in this? And I said, yes, you should. It's a good thing that Mike is doing. And I like the fact that despite at that point being multi-platinum and the Grammy, either I just got it or soon thereafter, the fact that I was experiencing all of those things and I was able to contribute to something so culturally significant. And this is after me running around in a self-destruction set like a fan taking pictures of Just Ice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to go from that to being like, oh, Mr. Young, put on this white t-shirt, please walk down this alley and do your verse, give it to me. Give it to me.
I mean, living in LA and being around the gangster element, and back then, it was a lot more hardcore. Like, Crips and Bloods weren't doing songs together.
That's right.
Period.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Certain people could not work with DJ Quick because he was a Blood. Certain people could not work with MCA because he was a Crip.
That was the interesting part about the All in the Same Gang recording. At least me, I'm not affiliated with anybody. I'm Switzerland. I was driven there, did my verse, driven back. I saw Dre, I saw an engineer, maybe a security guy. That was it. It was at night. Do your thing. See you, Young. Done. And I know it's even the video shoot, you see there was, like, my part was broken up. There's other people's parts. You didn't have everybody together until the Arsenio Hall performance. So that record was made, video shot, but everybody was not in the same room until that night. But at that point, you saw how big the record was. And the fact that it was putting a lot of West Coast artists on the map, West Coast hip hop on the map, and the unity meant a lot more than any previous beefs. So that's why the Arsenio Hall performance was able to go off.
Well, you were on tour around this time, and one of the groups you toured with a lot was Milli Vanilli.
Yes, sir.
Now, Milli Vanilli, you fast forward to 2024, you find out never sang anything. It was all lip sync. And, and I interviewed Fab Morvan, from Milli Vanilli. He broke down the whole story.
Yeah.
But you're actually performing with these guys. You're getting on stage. You're rapping into the microphone. Then it's their turn to go on. And they're just lip syncing to the actual track that someone else is singing on. Was that a little weird?
For me, and I've been asked that before, but I knew Rob and Fab as men, and I knew Rob and Fab as artists. So,
I mean, were they really artists, though?
I mean, if
you're lip syncing, you're dancing.
All right.
If dancing is art, I'll give you that.
Two things. Number one, they're artists because they're performing in front of that many people. Number two, they weren't the only ones with hit records lip syncing. They were the ones that got caught for it.
Who else?
I'm not gonna tell you who else. Go back and look, dude. I'm not gonna tell you.
I know. For example, okay, CNC Music Factory. I think Martha Washington was the real singer.
Yeah, Martha Washington, the original vocal. So,
and then you saw the pretty girl with the big boobs in the music video, but she's not actually doing any of the vocals.
But having said that,
they got caught, and then it became a big thing, right? It was a lawsuit.
I've toured with Freedom literally for 30 plus years.
Right.
He does not bring a singer out on the road that can't sing those notes. So he's not going to have.
Well, he was actually rapping.
Right. He not only that Freedom was actually rapping, but the singer that he has can hit those notes. Now the woman in the video, I can't tell. Whatever. But
she's not the singer.
But
it is what it is.
She wasn't.
She
the
looked
singer.
good though.
Right.
But she wasn't the singer.
Right. So the point being that there was a lot when you had the pop acts with all the dancing, and the face microphones and whatever. All those notes, there had to be backing tracks. Physically, it was not capable.
A backing track is one thing. Okay, I get it. Madonna, when she performed, she even talked about how you can't run it up and down stage and do somersaults and hit the song perfectly.
So Vlad,
I get
here's the thing. If you have a backing track and you have a live mic, when does it become lip syncing? Their mics were always on.
Right. When you did not record any of the original vocals yourself any capacity.
That's fair.
Do you know other artists that did that? That someone else did all the vocals and they just...
That's fair. That's fair. Having said that, though, it wasn't their choice to do. They were hired to be, to do that.
It was ultimately their choice. They could have walked away from it, but it was obviously very alluring for a couple of broke kids out of Europe to suddenly be thrust in that environment. I think most people would have done what they were offered to do. I'm not taking away from them, but they could have said, "Now we're good." They weren't forced to do it.
Yeah, no.
I know the story. I've interviewed Rob. Fab. Rob passed away. Fab.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just look at it like, for an artist that wants to get put on, it's an impossible situation. It's just an impossible situation.
Okay,
you get put into it, and it's like, when I say the amount of success that they had, and us doing 6 days a week, I did 6 days a week from in April of 90, I did 6 days a week with them. May of 90, I did 5 days a week with them. I think we took Tuesdays off in April. I've never done even close to 5 days a week in 35 years since then, dude. You know what I mean? Like, to see that level, you're talking about an act, well, on their first album, headlining arenas, getting $50K a night plus overages, and there's overages every night. Somebody's in the back, shap, 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 shap. Every night.
Nah, I get it. Listen, they were the biggest thing ever during that time. They won Best New Artist Grammy. I believe Song of the Year Grammy. They won like 3 Grammys.
Right. So stop right there. In this era, where you talk about how much someone has to look good, be an online influencer, all these things that are away from the music, their ability to pull off how much they pulled off during that time was ahead of its time. That's the point that I make. I saw that in terms of, especially, Fab is a great guy. You know what I mean? And just sitting and talking to him.
Fab is dope. Yeah, I like him. Yeah.
But point being is that seeing what he went through, seeing, how he, was able to navigate that. I'm thinking of what I would do if I was put in that situation. It's like, man, if you're asking me to rap, to sing in a French accent or sing in a German accent, or sing in a language that's not mine, I'll take the check. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. So I'd have to defend him on that. Being on that tour, bought my first house, changed my life, got me in terms of a touring artist, gave me a really good backbone in terms of how I approach the road. So I will always defend my time with Milli Vanilli.
Well, yeah, they sold 30 million records,
right?
30 million singles worldwide. They were an absolute beast. When you found out that they had to give their Grammys back. This is the first time in Grammy history, and only time in Grammy history, that an artist gets awarded Grammys and then has to publicly give them back and do a press conference talking about why they gave it back. And, listen, they went through a very dark period after that.
Sure, absolutely.
Fab said that he would hide, he wouldn't go outside. Rob got into drugs and which ultimately killed him. But when you found out, as someone who won a Grammy legitimately himself, seeing these guys that you knew have to give back their Grammy, what'd you feel?
I mean, it hurt for them. It hurt for them. I mean, I couldn't. I couldn't stand up and say, oh, the Grammy committee wasn't justified. They were put in a situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now that it comes out that these aren't the actual artists that did the recordings
at all,
but they didn't turn around and give that Grammy to the background singers. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. They should have just given it to the actual
artist.
artist.
They should have given it to the actual artist.
Wow, I never thought about that.
If it really meant so much to take their Grammy away, give it to the rightful owner. Oh, 30 million records and there's no rightful owner? Okay, that shows how legitimate it is.
Well, right, because I don't think the runner-up got the Grammy that year either.
No. Not the runner-up.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, when
right.
they took him away, they didn't somehow fix it. They could give it to the next person that would have gotten the second round of votes, but they didn't do it.
What they could have done is given it to the people that actually recorded the songs.
That's actually an excellent point.
Because the point being, if you're going to give it to the next person, what, the 30 million singles go away?
Oh, yeah.
Arista
had no problems cashing those checks.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how legit, people are going to talk about legitimacy and high horse and all that other stuff. It's like, come on. At that point, it's like, okay, the rightful owner's screaming for it. And I never heard the number 2 screaming like, oh, I got to get my Grammy, because they knew. They knew the juggernaut they were up against.
Well, you have this first album. The song wins a Grammy. It goes platinum. It's, you're solidified as a hip-hop star. But then you left your label, Delicious Vinyl, because of problems with the label, which many artists go through. What exactly happened? And how many what type of album deal did you sign? How many albums did you owe them?
I forget how many albums I promised. I think the fact that it was any contract in California at the time was basically 7 years. That you couldn't really go much beyond that. So however many albums I was going to be due to give them in 7 years, and the process of making the first album took 2. So I got signed in September of '87, and we're going well into 1990.
Yeah.
Before we're even thinking about potentially of a second album, and then we're in litigation.
Okay, why'd you leave?
I left because I didn't get paid. I left because it just wasn't, it wasn't right, and yeah, it just basically was that. I mean, not only the deal I signed, but just all the stuff. It wasn't right for me to stay, and it wouldn't make sense for me to turn around and say, okay, I'm going to make a second record when I'm still waiting on royalties from the first record that much after. Now, having said that, once again, that example I gave of the distributor having to pay the independent label, having to pay the production company, and then having to pay the artist, it's a long wait. But at that point, it's like, I know I've been out here doing all this legwork. Where's the dough? And then, of course, lawyers and managers and everybody wants to step up and say, we'll take on this fight. And that's what it is.
Well, the label sued you for breach of contract.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it was settled out of court.
Yeah.
What was it settled for?
I'm not gonna get into that, dude. Come on.
Well,
It was settled for me getting a nice deal from Capitol, and them and Delicious not having, like, they didn't get points off of any of my future records or whatever. It was just.
So Capitol bought out your deal from Delicious Vinyl, essentially.
I mean, I don't know what they paid Delicious. I know what they paid me.
Okay. Well, because look, I mean, with Delicious Vinyl, you got this guy that not only has a huge hit, but also wrote 2 huge hits also. I wouldn't want to let Young MC go. Why not just, okay, I know you're unhappy. Here's the money that's coming. How about we just advance you some money, knowing that it's coming anyways, make you happy. Let's do another album and have it, have some more hits. Was there never a conversation like that?
It was too acrimonious for that. And too much time. Literally, we're talking, I got signed in '87. Bust a Move comes out in '89. We're well into 1990. We're in the fall of 1990 when the lawsuit is going on, right? So much time has passed. They know what they have paid me and haven't paid me, but I'm making money on the road. I got my Pepsi commercial. Even my publishing deal. I signed an outside publishing deal to do 10 songs with Almo Irving, right? So this is when I haven't gotten my royalties from Delicious yet. Almo Irving offers me $100,000 for 10 songs, which is a ton of money. 10 grand a song as a writer. This is not artist royalty. Just as a writer, we're going to assume that each song that you write for us is 10 grand a song. All of a sudden, I get an offer from Barry White for 150 grand for the same deal. Like, oh, you have money for that, but you have money to pay me? I took the 100. Yeah. Left the 50 on the table. That's where I was.
Okay, so now you get signed to Capitol Records and you put out your second album, Brainstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Peaks at number 66 on the Billboard 200. And it goes gold, but there's no big singles on it. How did that feel to go from all this craziness and huge song and so forth to, okay, I mean, a gold record is nothing to sneeze at, but you're not having any songs that are reacting at this point?
Well, I always looked at it, watching Tone blow up, right? And at this point, by the time I'm making my second record, Tone should be well into his second record, and I'm not hearing much about that going on. So I'm watching Tone's journey as well. But watching him, knowing how I felt when I was just the writer on those songs, and then seeing how massive my records were and the Grammy and the whole bit, I always looked at it as a lottery win. A lot of people get into this and say, okay, I have a platinum record, I'm win a Grammy Award, and every record's gonna be like that. I knew it wasn't like that. Tone has sold more records than me, and I have the Grammy and he didn't. To me, there was some part of that didn't necessarily seem fair or didn't seem equitable. But if I'm gonna be looking at things like that, I believe I won my Grammy before Luther Vandross won a Grammy. I think it was the, so if I have factoids like that, I'm not gonna sit there and say, well, my second record needs to go multi-platinum, I need to have as big of a single. You know, I said, okay, let me do my best to try and make better music. Let me do my best to see what I can do to make an impact with people. But I wasn't really caught up in it like, oh man, you know, they don't like me anymore. I wasn't really caught up in that. I was happy to have a second album and happy to have what I had in my, you know, in my back pocket already.
Well, right around this time, Michael Jackson reaches out. And he wants you to rap on one of his songs. Right?
Yeah.
And your manager gets involved in this conversation.
Yes.
How did that go?
Well, I'm hearing all this hindsight, and this is around the time when he had done, I don't think it was the exact record that Michael Jackson had done with Heavy D, but it's the time when he's doing guest appearances with rappers, and I heard there was interest, but then I heard that my manager had asked for an advance.
Do you know how much?
I have no idea. I just heard that was the response that went out from my team, and that nothing had come back. That was basically, and my thing was, if I was approached, I'd say, no, I do a Michael Jackson, you know, I do a Michael Jackson guest spot for free.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you can see both sides of it.
Oh, no, for sure.
Because, no. For example,
whatever my manager asked for, I deserved.
Yeah.
Now, and he may have looked at it like, well, Marvin deserves to get paid on it, so I'm gonna go get him the money. Me, I'm like, I'll do a Michael Jackson record because I'll get 10 features and get 10 times whatever you're asking from those 10 features just because I've done something with Michael Jackson. And that went well.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, Michael Jackson, the Thriller album music video cost like $1.7 million to put together, which is the equivalent of like $2.5 million today. His budgets were insane. He had blank checks from Sony. Right. Do whatever you want. You got to understand, back then, I mean, to do a music video like Thriller, where you have
Vincent Price,
Price, and who's the director? Was it Scorsese?
Wasn't it John something? John?
No. Scorsese did something else. I think Scorsese did Bad.
You need to type that in.
Yeah.
Thriller. It was.
John Landis.
There you go, John Landis.
Who was a huge director.
Massive director.
So I understand from the business point of view, well, look, they definitely have the money. So let's ask for some money because this is a commercially successful rapper. So it makes sense to ask for money. But on the flip side, you don't get too many calls from Michael Jackson. If Michael Jackson calls, whatever. If y'all want to pay me, not pay me, who cares? It's Michael Jackson. It's part of history. The greatest entertainer of all time is what they called him after he passed.
Absolutely.
And it's true.
Ironically, Vlad, that's part of the reason when your people reached out, I didn't call you asking you for money. Because I lived through that. You see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, you said that you stopped using managers after that.
That's essentially, well, the idea, and I've heard 50 Cent make reference to this, you get to a certain point A manager helps you establish stuff. A manager helps you open the doors, get the deals, meet the agents, start your career, get those things going. And then after that, anything that they bring additionally is something worth, commissioning. But if I was to take on a manager right now at the rates that are going, even in my weakest years, that person would be making anywhere between $40,000 and $70,000 without doing a thing and not offering me anything new.
Yeah.
Just from the commission, they're going to be getting that. So why bring them on? What I do is the people that have connections and the people that bring me deals, I commission them on those deals and make sure they get taken care of, and that's it. I'm about to get in a situation where I have some people doing more day-to-day stuff for me, but it's not going to be on a commission basis because
you pay them.
Yeah, because I've done everything I can to keep my business where it is now, to not sell my publishing off, to get the show money that I get. So there's no reason really to involve anybody else in the stuff I have existing, but new stuff I'm always open to, and that way I can kind of control what I'm doing.
Well, your third album comes out. What's the Flavor? And Ali Shaheed Muhammad from A Tribe Called Quest, he co-produced it.
Yes.
And look, A Tribe Called Quest was hot to death.
Absolutely.
Was that Midnight Marauders era?
I want to say yeah, because Check the Rhyme had well been out, and I want to say Low End Theory and that had already been out. So it was in that time. I did a couple of things with Ali Shaheed, and then a lot of tracks with a protege of his named Beetle. And I learned a lot about East Coast production, learned a lot about album creation and dressing a track and all that stuff. Having said that, in hindsight, there was such a push because gangster rap had been really taking over, and I had been comfortable, in and around gangster artists from dealing with NWA, but the thought process was that it was such a big phenomenon that I needed to be harder, had to wear the fatigues, all that other stuff. That's the album, the What's the Flavor album, that I feel I was furthest away from being myself. And that was the last major label album that I did.
Right. This album did not do very well, didn't have any singles that blew up. Your least performing album. And then did Capitol Records drop you after that?
I don't know about Capitol dropping. I think that was the end. I mean, I didn't have any other options after that. It was kind of, after the first record, we had adjusted the contract, and the second record, I still got a major advance, and we went about it. I said I wanted to work with Tribe Called Quest. We did. The album did what it did, and then we just kind of went on after that. Went on our own separate ways.
Well, a couple years later, Eazy-E dies of AIDS. As someone that knew him, were you shocked when you heard the news?
It was heartbreaking. It was, shocking, of course, but heartbreaking because Eazy was a friend. Eazy was someone that I felt like I grew up with in the music business, watching West Coast hip hop grow, and you just don't like it. Even to this day, I'm experiencing it more, where I have people that I've worked with and friends of mine die in this business. So it was tough. It was tough to hear, and I felt for his family and the people around him and all the people that he had helped and influenced. Yeah, it was a tough thing.
Yeah. Then the next year, Tupac gets killed, and you actually knew him from the Digital Underground days. Any interesting Tupac stories from back in the day? Not too many, because the thing was, Tupac and Digital, everybody in Digital, and I learned this from Money B, everybody in Digital had their solo projects, but when they were in digital, it was Shock G's, it was Shock G's vision. So a lot of my Tupac interesting stuff comes ironically after Digital, and somewhat after he passed, to be honest, because while he was doing his solo stuff, I didn't see him much at all. I'd known Johnny J, who produced a lot of tracks for him, and other people. So it was more of me just kind of watching from afar. And one interesting fact that I had never really shared with anyone, when the Tupac movie came out, I was doing a tour in Australia. We had 8 shows in 9 days, and we ended in Perth. And on the 9th, on the 9th day from Perth, after the show, I get on the plane in sweaty clothes and do a cross-country flight to go to Sydney, so that I could be there to co-host the first screening of the Tupac movie in a drive-in in Sydney. So they interviewed me there. I did a performance. My voice was shredded, you know what I mean, from all the shows I had done. But that's, and it was something that warmed my heart, because I was
fond of Tupac. Tupac had said nice things about me that had gotten back to me. So it was just something that I was honored to do.
Well, the next album comes out independently. Mm-hmm. Return of the One-Hit Wonder.
Yes.
I'll be honest, I kind of shook my head a little bit when I first
which is
saw
fine.
the album title. Because, I mean, One-Hit Wonder.
And by the way, I didn't consider myself a one-hit wonder. I if I'm not mistaken, I think Principal's Office either went gold or was close to gold. Know How was a big record. I had written the 2 songs for Tone.
Yeah.
At that point, I was also starting to write for other outside people. So the one-hit wonder was more how people regarded me as opposed to how I regarded myself.
Right, and it's got a painting of you in a superhero outfit.
Yeah, that was
so
fun.
It was like you're making fun of yourself in a way.
Yeah, no, it's definitely self-deprecating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And look, it's interesting. I mean, you especially see this on social media now. People will find things to make fun of you for, which they themselves will never come close to accomplishing.
Oh, sure.
99.99% of artists who release music are no-hit wonders.
Yeah. Not only no-hit wonders, but the math at a major label was that 1 out of every 20 records are the ones to blow up.
Right.
So me, that I was able to be part of multiple of those, I felt like I was in a good place. And to your point, I've said this before, you probably heard it in the Drink Champs interview, but I live by the creed. People who talk shit usually haven't done shit. Because if you're in this, then you know how hard it is.
Oh, yeah.
So there's music that I hear from artists that I don't necessarily like, but I'm not going to go out there and criticize them because I know what the fight is like. I know what the struggle is like. So and I actually pride myself on going and listening to people's follow-up records. Okay, that's the single. What did they do once they had the budget, had the money, was able to do everything they could artistically? Sometimes I find better music in those follow-up records, even if they didn't do as well commercially, because that's kind of how I approached it. Every record I made, I'm like, okay, if this is the last record I ever make, I want it to be the best representation of myself.
Well, yeah, and you had some more albums after that. The 5th album was Ain't Going Out Like That. Then the 6th album, Engage the Enzyme.
Engage the enzyme, yeah.
Engage.
My rhymes are like wine, made from grapes on the vine, getting better with age to engage the enzyme. That's the lyric from that.
I mean, by this time, have you sort of accepted that you're now kind of more of a legacy artist and you're not going to be #1 on the charts anymore and you're just doing it because you love to do it? Or what was really your mindset at this point?
I had a bachelor's in economics, right? So every record that I put out after my major label releases, every record that I put out was paid for by licenses. If I never toured them, if I never did videos with them or anything, it was either a commercial or a video game or a TV show. You could have the guy with the Bust a Move voice, but you wouldn't have to pay 150 grand for the Bust a Move master. You could get it for a tiny fraction of that and get something that is talking about a topic that fits your, whatever you're selling. Or whatever the movie is or whatever the TV show is. So that was my approach, is like for all those years to get those licenses and to see music that a lot of people didn't know. Plus I'm still touring because everybody wants to see Bust a Move. So I may have a 20-minute set. Bust a Move is only basically 5 minutes, and if I do an intro to it, maybe 7. But I got, 13, 15 minutes that I could do whatever the hell I wanted. So a lot of that would be my newer material. So now I'm at a point now where when I'm going out and touring, I'm doing a bunch of songs at the beginning that people don't know, but they perform so well that I'm able to win them over. And I see my streams go up in certain markets after I leave doing the new stuff. And that's heartwarming to me because it made the time outside of, Bust a Move and Stone Cold Rhyming. It made the time since then worthwhile. Like the things that I was doing to make popular music or make hit music could actually resonate with people. And I can really drill down on that from the stage.
I mean, in terms of licensing, what do you think was the biggest payday you got from your song being licensed?
I mean, well, remember now, up until Reversion, I'm seeing what some of the numbers are if they shared the deals with me.
Reversion is what?
Reversion is 35 years after the release of a record, the copyright becomes non-exclusive. So the artist can take part in it. So
okay, but does it get returned to you though?
No, it's not a question of being returned to you. It means the rights aren't exclusively the labels.
okay, so for example, Dame Dash is going through this right now, right? He's got a third of Reasonable Doubt, and he lost a lawsuit and he's being forced to sell it at auction.
Right.
And before the auction went live, Jay-Z chimes in and said, well, whoever buys it is only going to have it for 5 years because it's going to revert back to me. But you're saying it doesn't actually revert to the owner, to the original writer?
Well, how can I put it? If someone wants to take a song and put it in a film, right? For the first 35 years of a record deal, the copyright owner, the label owner is the only person, basically the only entity that can make that deal. After 35 years, the artist can take part in that. The artist can go make the deal. So if you're in a situation where the artist is big and powerful, then they own the master rights and the like, when the reversion happens, they can basically use their power to, to say, okay, we're going to exclude anybody from the outside, especially if the person from the outside is not part of the original, copyright creation, set.
So in terms of licensing, the biggest payday for Bust a Move came from what?
I didn't see all the deals, dude. I know that it would have to be well over 100 grand, probably, at least 150 to 200 grand. I couldn't tell you what. It would probably be a film. Okay. Now the royalty situation might be something different where there's a decent advance and then the thing gets played into the ground and the royalties come up. But yeah, in terms of seeing like a big 7-figure thing on paper, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I remember I interviewed Sir Mix-a-Lot. He told me with a completely straight face that he has made over $100 million off Baby Got Back. And I believe he said, my lifestyle now hasn't changed since the song came out and blew up. Right. And it's in a lot of movies. It's in a lot of commercials.
And streaming makes it more interesting too, because all of a sudden a movie that hasn't been played in a while all of a sudden gets on a streaming platform. Yeah. And they start going back and say, okay, what songs were in this and how long is that? And all of a sudden you're seeing money out of that pool as well. So it's something. It's like a gift that keeps on giving.
In retrospect, knowing what you know now, if you had signed the deal that you could have signed, how much do you think between the Tone Loc records and your record would you have made?
I don't even think like that, Vlad. I know you want a juicy answer, dude, but I don't even think like that.
Well, because they were huge records.
No, they were huge records, but here's the thing. My whole life experience, my whole career experience, musician experience, writer experience is like a really well-knit sweater. So if you're asking me to pull on a string to see what it would be like, by the time I keep pulling on that string, it's not gonna be a sweater anymore. Okay. So for me to put it into context, like, oh, if I change this one thing, what would the rest of it be like? That might have screwed everything else up.
I feel you.
You know what I mean?
So owning the publishing to all those songs and then everything else like that.
Yeah, I wrote all those songs, dude. That's how I look at it. It's like, okay, there's other stuff that I own all the publishing on. I still have, having what I had on Bust a Move is not a bad thing. Trust me. Like getting the Bust a Move publishing back is a 7-figure decision over time. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. Yeah. That's a win. Like you said, there's a lot of no-hit wonders. Exactly. And there's a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4-hit wonders that got no publishing on anything ever. Yeah, that's true. You know what I mean? So that's how I got to look at it, is in terms of where I am. I'm not looking about, it's kind of that thing where a tiger's chasing you and it's like, oh, you got to be faster than the tiger. No, I just got to be faster than the slowest guy.
Well, around 2002, you started doing television. You were on The Weakest Link, Rap Stars Edition.
That was fun.
With Rev Run, DJ Quick, Jermaine Dupri, The Brat, Be Real, Cypress Hill, Exhibit, Nate Dogg. And you actually won it. You beat Exhibit in the final round.
Yes. That was fun. I gave the money to the Humane Society. I was an animal person back then.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I have a Rottweiler.
I got two medium hair domestic cats, and I have two. And I have a Yorkie poodle and a Maltese poodle.
Yeah, I have a Rottweiler and a Maine Coon cat.
Oh, Maine Coon is cool.
Yeah, they're huge. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 30-pound cat.
There you go.
At the full growth.
Dude, what you need, 2 things. Little Robot, are you hip to the Little Robot? Little Robot 4, change your life. I don't have to touch the thing for 3 or 4 days.
I'm about to write this down.
Little Robot 4, and then they make beds that the cat can actually claw on and sleep in. I'll show them to you when we're done. but they're like life-changing. But that Little Robot 4 will change your life.
All right, I'm about to cop one.
Yeah.
You convinced me.
It's a grip. It's a grip, but it's
dealing with litter
worth it.
is a pain in the ass.
Oh, no, definitely a pain in the ass. Dude, you can control it from your phone.
Nice.
You put in about half the litter you put in a normal box. Cat goes in, does its business. It has a sensor in there, so it sifts the litter out and puts the waste in a bag underneath. And you only have to go through it every couple of days to change it out. No smell. Keep it, you know.
I don't know if my cat will fit in it though. It's kind of.
Oh yeah, no, your cat's big. I have an
$700, so we'll see.
I have an 18, 19 pound cat.
Okay.
And she fits in.
Oh, she fits. Okay, all right. So maybe this will work actually. Yeah. Well, I see anywhere between
it's big, dude.
700 and 900.
Yeah. The 900 is closer to it. Don't get no pre-owned shit.
No. I'm not going to. Pre-owned kitty litter thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds nasty.
Open box.
Right. You're also on Celebrity Fit Club 3.
Yes.
With Kelly LeBrock, Bruce Valanche.
Bruce Valanche, yeah.
Tempest Bledsoe from The Cosby Show, Countess Vaughn, Chaz Bono, Jeff Conaway, Gunnar Nelson, and Bizarre of D12.
Yes.
And you won. You lost more weight than anyone else.
Yeah, it was not the smartest decision. They didn't have us putting on muscle. It was a lot of... So the first 2 weeks, our first 2 weeks on Celebrity Fit Club, they gave us a diet that they had never tried out on anybody before. No meat and no carbs. And I lost 14 pounds in that first 2 weeks. And we were shooting every 2 weeks. I think it would be 7 or 8 episodes over a 14 to 16 week period. Our weigh-ins would be the morning before taping. They would have us stand backwards on a scale. So my heels would be up against where the numbers were. Well, I'm a big guy. I have pretty good balance, and my stomach wasn't too prominent. So I was able to look between my legs and see how much I weighed upside down before they taped. So I knew when I was, there was 1 week I didn't lose any weight, but I knew my numbers before I went in. So that was something that actually made that taping a lot more calm for me. Having said that, it gave me an insight to reality TV that basically you were basically going to do more of what you did before after the show, regardless of how big it was or how many people saw you. It's not like me as a rap artist was going to go on a show, lose 40-something pounds, and a record label call and say, oh, you look great on that weight loss show, let's give you $1 million deal. Just wasn't going to happen. So that was something that gave me a whole lot of perspective and kept me from doing a lot of dumb stuff just to get my name out there. Oh, you should be out more. You should get your name out there. You should have people looking for it. To do what, dude? You know what I mean? What am I going to do? I know what I do musically. I know what I want to do artistically. I'm not going to go and get on some reality show and do something that's out of my character with the hope of that's going to lead me back to the thing that's in my spirit. Either you see it or you don't. I do it for a check. I did Celebrity Fit Club to get, down payment on my house.
Yeah.
Fine. That's how it was.
Well, I know, and I've talked about this before. During the pandemic, I started taking my weight very seriously because I started seeing heavy people that I knew die.
Yeah.
Fred the Godson, who I've interviewed, died from COVID. K-Slade, my man, died from COVID. Both of which were heavy, and you start to see the correlation between catching COVID, being a certain weight, and dying.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it seriously. I start counting calories. I lost like 25 pounds. I'm about 10 pounds heavier than I should be right now, but it definitely taught me how to lose weight. Like I know exactly how to lose weight now. It's based on the number of calories you eat per day and whatever workout.
Right.
For me, it's like 2,000 calories. If I go over 2,000, I'll gain weight. If I'm under 2,000 between the food and the working out, I will lose weight. And I started just throwing off weight. I mean, in terms of you losing weight and keeping your weight down, after doing Celebrity Fit Club, did that change your perspective? And is this something you kind of work with still, or not really care?
God bless everybody on Celebrity Fit Club, but that experience was not the thing that has allowed me to have a good weight loss journey. That was in 2006. Yeah. And by the time I think my low weight on that show was somewhere in the 240s or right under 240 pounds. When I shot up in the air in 2012, 13, and I did my movie Justice Served in 2015, that specifically, Justice Served, I was somewhere around 330 pounds. So I ballooned way back up.
330 pounds. And how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
Okay, we're about the same height.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy. I mean, and that's unhealthy.
Oh, yeah.
Just to keep it 100. And what I always say, sorry to interrupt you, I just want to say this, and this is what I tell people when we talk about weight, and I even tell my friends like Faison Love this.
Sure.
Show me an obese 70-year-old.
Exactly. Show me somebody who's a senior citizen who steps on the scale and sees the number that you see.
Yes.
Let alone the fact that, just got married, shout out to my wife, Chantal, love her to death. One of the biggest fears I have is laying in a hospital bed looking up at her because I didn't do something that I could have done about my health.
Yeah.
That I couldn't done about my weight. Oh, that burger tasted really good. Or I had all those carbs when I shouldn't have had, and now I'm in this situation. What is that going to do for her?
I mean, look, I interviewed Buster Douglas. After he lost to Holyfield, he went into a deep depression and started just eating and eating and eating until he put himself into a diabetic coma. And that's when he realized, okay, I'm going to kill myself if I keep doing this.
Right.
It's not like he's like really skinny now, but he's not what he once was.
Sure.
And when you look at just hip hop,
right,
pretty much everyone who's got the word heavy or fat or big in their names usually doesn't make it past their 50s. We just lost Fat Man Scoop,
right,
who was 50-something years old. Heavy D died in his early 50s. 2/3 of the Fat Boys are dead. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. Yes, sometimes it's celebrated to be fat and the overweight lover and, okay, I'm going to embrace this kind of thing.
Was it in an ancient Rome that being heavy was a sign of wealth and sign of success?
Yeah, lots of societies. I mean, a poor country being fat means that you're doing well in life. But the reality is, if you want to live for a long time, being fat is not the way to do it. So being 330 pounds, I never realized you were that heavy. Like, how much do you weigh now?
Just broke 260.
I mean, that's 70 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, imagine putting 70 pounds of flesh onto a table.
Now, the interesting thing is, at the end of Fit Club, they took the equivalent of fat molecules and put that weight in a bag on our back and asked us to run around. And it was 42 pounds for me, and that felt like a bunch. But having said that, I had denied myself carbs, meats. Like, there's ways to eat certain things and still be healthy with it. It has to be done in moderation. If you take something away totally, when you bring it back in, you could look at something, you could look at a carb and you're going to put on weight. So I pride myself in the fact that I can pretty much eat whatever I want, but I do my best in terms of moderating what I eat and keeping my health right.
Yeah.
So, make sure the blood tests and the whole 9 yards, and then we go from there.
Yeah. What helps out for me is that I have one of these digital scales that is tied to my phone, an app.
Okay.
And it tells me not only my weight, but the difference in weight from the last time I weighed myself.
Interesting.
And I've read this a lot. People who weigh themselves regularly will lose more weight than people who don't.
Sure.
Because you don't realize how much you really weigh. Yes, your clothes may feel a little tighter, but you could kind of get that out of your head.
Well, the 330 was an estimate, because I'm not the guy that's going to stand around for the before picture. And if I know I've been eating a lot, I'm not going to step on a scale just to see what the number is.
Yeah.
I remember my highest number was above 320, but I know I was irresponsible beyond that. So I'm assuming that it was 330 just on the size I was and the fact that I hadn't stepped on a scale for several months.
Yeah, man, it's scary. It's a scary thing. People die of heart attacks. People die from health situations. Fat Man Scoop was not that old. I knew Fat Man Scoop. I mean, we weren't close friends, but we talked to each other. I have voicemails from him. Like, I mean, it's cool that he died doing something he loved, but it's not cool that he died at a relatively young age. And like I said, by me weighing myself, I noticed that when I stopped weighing myself for a couple weeks, like I was in New York for a couple weeks, I didn't really weigh myself. I come back and I'm like 10 pounds heavier. I'm like, shit, okay, let me go back to weighing myself. And, and you realize, like, every day that you don't eat, your weight will go down. You could actually see it on the scale, like, especially with the digital scale. It's like, I know that if I don't eat lunch, by dinner time, I'll weigh about maybe 2 pounds less.
Right.
And it's like, and that's real. So I always weigh myself, and that's what's kept me on a path because, I used to weigh like, I'm like, what, maybe 210 now? I used to weigh 230.
Right.
but I could easily have gone to 250, maybe even 300, because I love to eat.
Right.
So yeah, man. Well, congratulations on taking it seriously.
Thank you,
because
man.
we want to keep you around.
I mean, I want to keep me around too.
Yeah.
So definitely.
And you had mentioned this. You had a cameo role in Up in the Air with George Clooney.
Yes, that was an interesting thing. Jason Reitman was a fan of my music, and I remember speaking to his wife, and his wife had said that he had written me into the movie, but I think she was talking to him, trying to keep him realistic, that there may not be a shot that he could get me in the film. I know I had shows around the time that they were asking to go to Miami and film it, because if you remember how the movie was laid out, it was a traveling businessman that had to go around to different businesses and essentially fire people, if I'm not mistaken. So this was the Miami run, so we were filming in Miami. They give me a date, and I want to say that I either had a show that day or something, but I moved the show to do the shoot. Because when they called, I'm like, oh, you want to do this movie with George Clooney? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Movie with George Clooney, stop pulling my leg kind of thing. Then when they called for the follow-up, I'm like, okay, move the show, went down to Miami, shot it, and that was life-changing for me. Not only meeting George Clooney and the fact that he knew some people I knew, but being able to get on, stage, perform, bust a move like I did the whole time, but also being able to see how big I was. And then in hindsight, look at that and say, okay, this is when you gotta, make changes, really make changes.
Right, because after that you did Justice Served.
Right.
Some years later.
A couple of years later, I did Justice Served, and I think that was when I was at my heaviest. There's a scene with my character. I'm wearing a prison jumpsuit, and there's other guys that are in the blue jumpsuits as well, but mine has to, of course, be the largest. And I literally look like Barney in a blue suit in this shot in this hallway, and I'm like, my God, I am huge. I'm directing the movie at the time. So I'm directing, acting, wrote it, funding it, did music for it, did all this work, and I'm looking at myself saying, not that I'm being vain, but just my health was not the greatest. So I jumped in the gym soon after that, and I started with a trainer and kind of went at it, and that started my weight loss journey.
I mean, how did that movie do overall? I mean, considering that you put it all together.
I mean, the movie business is messed up, dude. So most of the movies that are made, the people that fund them don't get their money back.
Oh yeah.
So I'm in the process of still money coming back in, I'm still in the red on it. Having said that, I appreciate the opportunity, love the opportunity. The irony of it is the second day I'm directing Lance Henriksen, who at this point had done like a couple hundred movies, and I'm a first-time director. And what I hearken back to when I'm on set directing him is how Dr. Dre produced me for All in the Same Gang. Giving me the freedom, letting me do my thing, but then putting up the guardrails to say, okay, when you say same gang, do it so you finish. Don't drag it out. Do it so you can finish, so we can either throw a hook or we can throw another artist behind you. That's the only real guidance that Dre gave me. So that was the thing when I'm working with Lance. I know every word that he's supposed to say. He doesn't say it exactly what's on the page, but I don't stop. I see if he starts where I have him start and finishes where I need him to finish. And the stuff in between I can mess with, I can edit, but does he get me from my A to Z? He does. Good take, keep it moving. And that taught me a lot in terms of artistry.
Yeah, the movie business is hard. I remember a friend of mine who put out a film. He said, how do you make a small fortune in Hollywood? Start with a large fortune.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Met some great people, though. Met some wonderful people.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, congrats on actually, like I said, in the very beginning, going to college teaches you how to finish. Lots of people have started movies.
Right.
That have never come out.
Right. Never come out.
Yeah, my man Nori. I remember I was in a movie with him and Ice-T, actually.
Right.
I actually have a speaking role in it. And that movie has never come out.
Right.
I remember we were filming it. Where was it? Was it in the Bronx somewhere? And I remember we're filming it. None of us have lav mics. And the camera's like way over there. And I'm like, Nori, are you sure this is going to work? Because we're pretty, I know video. This is what I do for a living. We're pretty far from oh, no, I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Be cool. Well, the high point or the proud moment that I have is that not only that the movie was finished, but all the bills were paid. There's a lot of people that finish a film and investors got their hands out, or people that, loans and promises aren't done. I can look anybody in the face that I made that movie with.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm happy about.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah.
Well, you said the last drink you ever had was with Shock G and Tupac.
Okay, so I will clarify that.
Okay.
The last time that I took a bottle from a man to toast somebody was me taking a bottle from Shock G toasting Tupac. I've had sips of champagne or beer or something like that since, but the last time I especially took hard alcohol and took a bottle, took a swig, was that, and that's 20 years ago.
Okay, and I guess you have a liver disorder?
I was diagnosed with, oh God, I guess it would have been, well, I was diagnosed with a liver disorder when I was 11 or 12 years old. So got through that, literally lost 50 pounds in the hospital. Got through that, and by the time I got to the point, because they told me don't drink in your teenage years, you got to have your liver heal. By the time I got to my early 20s and was allowed to drink, when I tasted it, I didn't like the taste of it. When I had a couple drinks, I took a couple shots with a girlfriend I was seeing at the time and didn't like the feeling of not being in control of my body and just left it alone.
Right, you've never done drugs?
No.
I mean, do you think that things would have gone differently if you kind of ended up doing cocaine and you know, like a lot of the, you know, lean and a lot of the drugs that have kind of affected the hip hop community?
For me, I've always felt since my childhood, I went to an accelerated high school. I went to a high school called Hunter College High School. Mm-hmm. So I know multiple kids that got 1,600 on the SATs. Like Justice Elena Kagan went to my high school. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda went to my high school. Okay. There's some really impressive people that they're just in my year that went to my high school that do impressive things. So I've always felt that regardless of my rap talent and the success I've had as an artist or as a writer, that my brain overall is the strongest part of me. So anything that would affect my brain, that would affect my ability to problem solve, discern, be creative, not for me. So if there's something that, because a lot of people drink and do drugs to avoid things, and I'm very self-confrontational. If there's something that needs to be dealt with, I just deal with it, because I was platinum at 22. You know what I mean? So a lot of the issues that people would have trying to, you know, grow up and say, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What am I going to do with, for a living? Are women going to like me? Am I going to make money? All that stuff I had handled, I felt, at 22. So I was able to sit back, watch, but also work on being the best me that I could be. And the best me that I could be would be not to take a substance that alters your brain.
Well, yeah, but you look at, for example, your contemporaries like Flavor Flav, who crashed your Grammy speech, and I've interviewed him about this. Mm-hmm. He's had a lifelong struggle with crack, you know, and he even talked about how, you know, when we talked, he said, listen, I was doing crack for 10 years straight. It's going to take me 10 years sober to get out of it. And I think after that interview, he relapsed. Because I remember him talking about, oh, I've been sober for a year. And I'm like, okay, the interview was this man. Okay, so he must have relapsed and so forth. I mean, you've seen it, of course, DMX. We had actually paid DMX for an interview, and he couldn't make it. And then we were trying to reschedule it, and then he dies from a drug overdose. You see this all the time. I mean, in fact, I've interviewed 5 people that have died from drug overdoses. Most recently, Rich Homie Quan.
Wow.
Coolio, who you knew very well. Mac Miller, Aaron Carter, and Gangster Boo from 3 6 Mafia.
I mean...
Serious.
Yeah, no, it's
especially
really...
with fentanyl these days.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, of course, it's very serious. And I just look at it like, okay, I always look at situations, the thing I say to myself is, what's the alternative? But also, if I go through this thing, if I do this thing, then what? Right? So if I'm going to take a substance to alter my brain to get me to forget about a problem, okay, I'll forget about the problem for whatever time the drug has the effect, then what? The problem won't go away. It'll probably be worse because I haven't addressed it. So is it better for me to address the problem or delay the problem? And in doing that, also not alter my brain in a way that it may not come back from, especially as I age.
Yeah.
And as you said, I have people close to me that for whatever reason have, died due to drug overdoses, whether knowingly or unknowingly.
Well, yeah. I mean, Coolio has had kind of a lifelong struggle with crack. I remember when I interviewed him, he even explained to me why he started smoking crack again. It was like people accused him of smoking crack. He's like, well, I might as well smoke it then. You could always justify drug use. There's no shortages of reasons to do drugs. But losing Coolio at what was he, in his 50s, I think?
I want to say late 50s.
Late 50s? Yeah, man, that was a tough one. Because, I didn't know him that well. I interviewed him. But
dude, it was tough. When I got the call and my agent was very close to him, it was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So, like, if I needed any motivation to stay clean and not get into stuff,
those moments,
I get it, but I don't really need it. I try and be somewhat of a voice of reason. I kick myself because there's certain situations, and I won't say who, but there's certain situations where we the talk was to do an intervention and it wasn't done because everybody's busy or everybody doesn't want to get into this person's business, and then the person dies having to do with a drug overdose. And it's tough.
So a rapper you knew, they had talked about doing an intervention with him.
Yeah, and it wasn't Coolio. So it's not yeah. But yeah, the talk was do an intervention years before, and then they passed away. And not saying that the intervention would have worked, because a lot of times, especially, we have, rappers have invincibility complexes. I'm not gonna say God complexes because that's too pretentious. Yeah. Rappers have invincibility complexes where, I'm not gonna get sick. That isn't gonna happen to me. I can take any drug. I can do whatever, because you start believing the shit you say in your rhymes. Right. You know what I mean? So if I was to be part of an intervention for a rapper that had any level of success, they just look at all the people trying to do, even if it's loved ones or whatever, it's like, y'all don't know how good I am. Y'all don't know how strong I am. Y'all don't know how damn near invincible I am. I'll show you. So that's the hard part of it, is I understand the mentality because I have a little of that mentality myself. Not something that's going to make me, make me turn to drugs, but definitely something that would make me avoid reality for a bit. Yo, I'm a great rapper. I can rap my way out of anything. And that's the logic. Yeah. Well, I smoke weed. I'm not particularly proud of it, but it just is what it is. And but if it calms you and you can, yeah. I used to be, full on teetotaler and don't do this, don't do that. It's like people need to cope. So yeah. I totally get it. Yeah, and listen, it could be worse entirely. Yeah, you ain't lying. Well, Young MC, man, I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. Yeah. And when I saw you on Drink Champs, I'm like, okay, I think this is good, man. I'm hoping we could do it again. I know you have recurring stuff with people. I'm only there in Arizona. I got some stuff that I'm doing musically now, so it's great. No, absolutely, man. You have an open seat whenever you want to come back. And like I said at the very beginning, what you and Tone Loc did in a couple of years really dominated, I feel, not just hip hop, but music in general. Sure. Because you guys were West Coast artists, but you didn't know that by listening to the music. Right. It wasn't like traditional West Coast music. It was original and it had a groove to it, but it was unique and it was dope in its own way. And you guys weren't emulating anybody else. Well, here's the thing. You guys created your own style, I feel. We did, but here's the thing. What was traditional West Coast hip-hop in 87? Yeah, you're right. When you know what I mean? About 87. Everybody was trying to carve out their lane. So I let them know, I had My Name Is Young. Yeah. Tone had Got It Going On. Literally, I think Eazy had Boys in the Hood or NWA had their first record. Bataram, 6 in the Morning. These records were unique. If you talk about Rodney O and Joe Cooley, yeah, even Wrecking Crew stuff. These records were really unique, and they may have had influences around, but nobody really stuck to a certain formula. So that was the thing. Like a record that was going to blow would seem unique. Well, I don't know if I agree with you on this, because I feel like during that time, West Coast hip hop had like an electro kind of feel to it. You see what I'm saying? The Uncle Jam's Army, the Arabian Prince, like
people like that I felt was setting the tone for what West Coast hip hop sounded like. And of course, the Ice-T's and so forth were going off in their own direction. But
everybody wasn't going to rap at 120 beats a minute, 126 beats a minute. So
they weren't.
That was electro. That was a phase of it. But not to cut you off, but that's what made West Coast hip hop unique.
Yeah,
is that you had the 125 beats a minute electro sound, and then you had guys that wanted to bob the head to something around 90. Those are two distinctly different things. Then when sampling came in, sampling made everything unique.
Sampling kind of started though, if you think about it. Rapper's Delight was a sample.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But
so it was always part of the equation, I feel.
Yeah, but like a lot of the electro stuff was not as sample based.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all. But like I say, your big record was, you could almost say, was a Red Hot Chili Peppers record in a way, because like you had Flea on the bass, and it really had a
the
funk kind of feel to it.
And the Ball and Jack sample. There was a lot of just straight up samples in that record. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. But once again, that made it unique. And I say, if on the East Coast they wouldn't have let that record come out, I don't know a label on the East Coast that would have put that record out. Yeah,
well, Delicious Vinyl, I really feel was a legendary label that doesn't get the props that it deserves. Like, for example, the Far Side's first album was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it was a great record. And I got to shout out Def Jeff. Def Jeff put out 2 records on Delicious Vinyl, and he just had the misfortune of coming out, I want to say either October or November on both records. And by the time it got to the holidays, it was overwhelmed by all the holiday releases, and too far away from summer to really do a bunch of touring to really make something happen. So, I always have a warm spot in my heart for Def Jeff when it comes to me thinking about the Delicious days, because him being there was definitely a positive for us in terms of artistry. But in terms of he could have definitely, I would have loved it if he had more of a I would have loved it if he would have been more celebrated as an artist himself.
I mean, hit records, man, it's like lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, you can't predict it. That's what
you can't predict it.
Did you know Bust a Move was going to be a hit? No. Did you know Wild Thing was going to be a hit? No. Did you know Funky Cold Medina was going to be a hit? Maybe, because we saw what Wild Thing was doing, but you couldn't predict it because people might have been sick of the rock thing. You just put it out, do your best, see what it is.
That's what it is, Young MC, man. Truly an honor to finally sit down with you. It's always special to me to sit down with an artist that I loved before I ever got into the music industry.
Thank you, man.
Like, because at that point, you're sitting in your bedroom in high school with your headphones on, and these people are, especially growing up in the Bay Area, you don't see these people. You don't meet them. Right. You don't know them. You don't
There's no video.
There's no video. You don't think you could ever do this. It's not realistic. Later on in life, you start to meet rappers, and you have interactions, sometimes negative, and it kind of taints the way you look at the music. But interviewing someone like you, where at the time when I first became familiar with you, I was strictly a hip hop fan. I had absolutely no plans to do this for a living. Like, this is really a very left field kind of move for me. I mean, you watched the Nori interview.
Yeah, sure.
I did. Like, I wasn't ever planning to do this in high school or even in college. It just happened. And to interview someone that I absolutely, I love their music so much, like with you, is truly an honor, man. And thank you so much for coming in.
No problem. Thank you, dude. I look forward to hopefully doing this again.
Let's do it.
All right.
Peace.